Again.
Just got a couple more people coming in. We'll hold up one more. See if they're in yet.
See Hank, I see Nancy.
So is the only one missing, Tim?
Tim's not coming.
Right, but he's the only one missing?
Yeah.
You got everybody else here?
Yeah,
Is Donald here?
yeah.
I see him.
Picture's not there, but he's there.
Okay.
All right. Seeing how it's 7 o'clock. Welcome to the Chelmsford Planning Board meeting for Wednesday, March 10th, 2020. This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia and being conducted remotely. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order to impose strict limitations of the number of people that may gather in one place, we are doing this virtually. Welcome to the Chelmsford Planning Board. First thing up was the 61 Dunstable Road. Paul Haverty was supposed to weigh in on this, Colleen, or Evan and him have been working on it.
Yep, Evan.
Yeah, I just think, isn't Bulgarian first? Colleen, where's Bulgarian on the agenda?
Right after this. You want to do Bulgarian first?
No, that's fine.
Paul Haverty's going to sign in as soon as he can.
He's there, I think.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I'm here.
Oh, hi, Paul.
Hey, Colleen, how are you?
Go ahead.
All right, so are we starting with 61 Dunstable?
That's what's on the agenda.
Okay. So the guidance that I have for the board is that I spoke with Attorney Duchesne's last week. I informed him to revise the plan in accordance with Nancy's comments, as well as provide the board in writing with their voluntary proposal as was verbally articulated at the last meeting. Based upon that, it's reasonable for the board as part of their finding and subsequent public hearing, based upon a letter from the applicant specifically indicating that they're voluntarily proposing it as such, willing to accept the condition and willing to proceed at their own risk, that this is viewed as a reasonable and viable scenario moving forward.
All right. So all we're looking for now is a vote on applicability. I'll run it around the board to see if anybody's got any questions. Glenn, do you have any?
No, I have no questions.
Mike Walsh,
No, I'm good. Thank you, Henry.
Nancy Arroway,
No questions. Just remember to put conditions into the finding.
Hank,
No questions. Thank you.
Don,
No.
well, if nobody has any questions for anything, I would entertain a motion to find applicability for the COID for the property of 61 Dunstable Road.
So moved.
He's got a 6-foot stick.
Need to do a roll call. What? Somebody's talking and I couldn't hear. All right, I'm gonna do a roll call. Glenn,
Yes.
Mike Raisback,
Yes.
Mike Walsh,
Yes.
Nancy Arroway,
Yes.
Don Van Dyne,
Yes.
and Cool,
Yes.
and me, unanimous.
Who seconded that motion?
Nobody.
Mike Raisback.
Oh,
Who made the
no, he-
motion?
I thought Hank, did you second it, Hank?
No, I didn't do anything.
Oh, I thought I saw you. I'll second it if you want. Put me on for a second.
Okay,
Well, thank you very much. We'll see you in a few weeks when we get our plans together and get back to the board. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Good night.
All right, Stonegate Construction, I'm gonna step aside. This is
Yep.
all up to you,
we
Mike.
have, we have Delgarian first, please.
So I got a question on that. Which agenda are we going by? I don't have them on our agenda.
I don't have it on my agenda either.
The revised agenda of March 8th?
I'll share my screen.
Yeah, it's on the revised agenda that was posted to March 8th.
I've got March 10th.
Yeah, I got a different one too, but that's all right. Go ahead. I mean, I just picked up when Evan said there was another one there, so I just want to make sure we're all on the same one. I'll find it. Thank you.
All right. I think we got a bunch of letters to read for this one too, don't we, Colleen?
Delgarian, I don't think so.
Oh, I saw something in here.
Should have at
There was
least
one letter from Christina Papadopoulos.
Oh, yes, hold on. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
I think in,
We had it for a minute there.
yep, hold on.
You gonna read it?
The bond, yeah, no, there's the bond, and then she had something else here. Okay, so I do have the letter up. Do you want me to go ahead and read it?
Yep.
Okay, so this is Planning Board File Number 2017-13 Woodbine Street Bond Establishment for a Public Way. Dear members, this office understands that the applicant wishes to sell the vacant lot on Woodbine Street, Lot 6G. This office has no issue in allowing the applicant to sell the vacant lot. The vacant lot was created under the definitive subdivision regulations. Subdivision approvals require the applicant to improve the roadway prior to obtaining a building permit. The intent of the roadway is to become an accepted public way, therefore maintained by the town. The new owner of the lot will be subject to these restrictions. This poses a risk to the buyer, and therefore best solution is to bond the public roadway improvements. This office presented a letter dated October 24th, 2017 to the planning board indicating that the applicant must establish a surety with the DPW for the proposed work. There is no other way for the town to ensure that the improvements will be completed if this
Let me
is
go over
denied
to
a
October.
building permit.
We're in the middle of a planning board meeting right now.
Henry, you're not muted. There you go.
Sorry for that.
No problem.
I lost my spot. No improvements have been completed toward this public way. For that reason, this office has determined that the bond should be $123,900. Please see the attached breakdown sheet for further information. And that's from Christina Papadopoulos. And I do have the breakdown sheet.
So that's the only thing we have for Woodbine then.
I believe so.
All right. We have an applicant here to speak.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you. Greg Halladina for the owner, Stephen Delgarian. We came to the board several years ago. Mr. Delgarian had 3 residential structures on 2 lots, and then there was 1 vacant lot. and it was lacking public and water and sewer connections. And this is a situation that had been existing in his family for their ownership of the property over decades. The plan ultimately approved was for 4 lots, 3 residential structures, each on 3 lots, and then the 1 vacant lot. And we were going to extend the public way, Woodbine Street, and install drainage, and then tie in the lots to public water and sewer. It was a win-win. The town would get the upgrades and the extension of the public way with the drainage. The property would be tied into water and sewer. Each structure would be on its own lot. And the ZBA ultimately granted the relief that was necessary to have these 4 lots created. Nothing in the field was going to change other than the upgrades and the installation of drainage. In other words, we weren't adding additional lots. We had to get land court approval for the plan that was approved because this was registered and recorded land. And that was an awfully slow process, complicated by COVID. But ultimately, a couple months back, we got the land court sign off and the plan was signed by this board. There is an interested party or parties that are inquiring about purchasing the vacant lot, which vacant lot is on the public way of Woodbine. The extensions we were talking about are further down Woodbine. The problem is the certificate of approval calls for a condition number 21, which says all improvements within the subdivision roadway shall be completed prior to issuance of the final occupancy permit. So although we could sell the lot, we couldn't build on it. So it would, render it unsaleable to almost any buyer. Mr. Dolgarian, he's not here in this meeting. He's actually celebrating his 87th birthday, by the way. He wants to use the proceeds from the sale of that vacant lot, if it can be done, which is on the public way, Woodbine, to finance the extension of Woodbine to make the improvements and install the drainage. So basically, we framed it as asking for a minor modification of the approval to permit the sale of the lot and the issuance of a certificate of occupancy prior to completion of the roadway improvements. Now, you've heard the letter, it was read to you by Ms. Papadopoulos. I spoke with her previously, and she's looking for a surety bond. And, her position is there's no other way for the town to ensure that the improvements would be completed if it's not tied to the building permit approval. And I would just suggest and ask the board, there is another way to ensure improvements are done without tying it to the building permit approval. You could either have a cash bond, a surety bond, or execute a covenant with the owner, or you could have a tri-party agreement with the lender to finance the improvements. And on behalf of Mr. Dolgarian, we would just ask the board to consider a less onerous method than a bond, perhaps just a covenant, that there be no sale of the other 3 lots until the improvements are completed. And I ask that because the other 3 lots have structures on them. Their assessed values are about $950,000 in total. So their market value is, well over $1 million of security that could be tied up in lieu of posting a bond. I would also point out that if not for Mr. Dolgarian's proposal, the situation would exist as it always has been. And this vacant lot, as I told you, is on the public way portion. So when Ms. Papadopoulos says she doesn't object to the sale, but she suggests there's a risk to a buyer of the lot because you may not get your building permit approved until the work is done, I would just ask that we be allowed to sell the lot because it could tie into sewer, it could tie into water. It's on the public way portion of Woodbine. So there really would be no risk to that buyer, whether or not we completed the improvements in the drainage further down Woodbine from where the vacant lot is. So for all those reasons, I would just ask the board to consider a minor modification to, allow the sale of that vacant lot and it not be tied into the building permit approval, but that there be a covenant that there be no sale of the other 3 lots until those improvements are done. And that would enable us to use the funds from the sale of that vacant lot to conduct the improvements.
All right. I'm going to run it around the board. I see Christine has popped in. Christine, you have a comment to make on this?
So as I outlined in my letter, I just feel that a bond really is the best way to do it. Having a covenant really does not, isn't a good way to protect the town. We could go maybe, 30 years before there's a sale of the lot. And by then, nobody really knows what's happening and it gets lost in the mix. We've had this issue with other developments in the past where certain lots get handed down through family members and then nothing ever actually gets sold or gets caught in the process. So the covenant really doesn't protect us. So I'm just looking to establish a bond so that we can protect the town
We're losing you.
the best way possible.
Glenn, do you have any comments?
Yeah, the whole bond thing, I get it, why Christina wants what she wants. I think it's more beneficial to hold back the occupancy permit on that house that they're gonna build. Let them sell the lot, let them, just give them a time frame on it and hold the occupancy permit hostage until the road is finished. They're gonna try and finish the road out faster than anything if they get $300,000 or $400,000 tied up out of their pocket wanting to sell the building that they're gonna sell. That's your incentive right there to get the road built.
Nancy? Thoughts,
Yeah, I'd
comments?
have to agree with Glenn.
Mike Walsh?
I'm in favor of a bond and following the advice of Christina.
Mike Raceback?
Well, I see Christina's point, and I think it's a good one. It's not clear to me that a bond is necessarily the only way to do it, but I agree that a covenant probably isn't. Is there any mechanism by which we could get a lien on some of those properties that we could force the sale or get the money, kind of like a mortgage, get the money out of it, one of the or more of those properties later on if this condition isn't satisfied? And I just throw that up as a possibility.
Yeah, I'd ask town council, but I think that just mucks it up a little bit.
It might, yeah.
Don?
Yeah, what's the total amount of improvements necessary? Dollar amount?
134,000, was it?
So-
123,900.
123,900.
So why would not the applicant take equity out of the 3 lots that he owns and go ahead and move forward and pay for the street improvements?
Well, ultimately, that's what he would have to do. And we were just asking if the board would consider allowing the sale of the lot and taking the security in a covenant prohibiting any sale of the other 3 lots. But I understand what Christina was saying about a bond. I mean, if that's what's the board's preference, we'll do it. We just thought it would be less onerous to just have us sell the lot and then use those funds to do the improvements. I mean, I understand the town's need for security. I guess
Sure.
we're just looking at 2 alternates, either the bond that Christina was proposing, a surety bond, or a covenant.
Right. The covenant actually is probably not going to address the issue at hand. This goes back, if I recall, it's got to go back 3 plus maybe 4 years.
It does, 2 or 3 years, yeah.
Yeah. But it's got to be 4+ years. I mean, 3 at least. Because I remember sitting in the room listening to this before I was on the board. The bond is probably be the cleanest and easiest way to move forward. Holding back a CO, that might be a little messy between the applicant and the new owner of the lot. I think I'd go with Christina unless we can think of another creative way that would protect the town and hopefully get your client what he needs.
Don, I think I'd agree with you and go with the bond and just it makes it cleaner just because we've had problems in the past. Anybody got any other questions about breaking off the lot? No issues, nobody has any problems?
One more question, Henry, to Evan. In the past on multi-lot subdivisions like this, hasn't it been customary to allow them to get rid of one lot to build out the road before they sold the other lots?
We have been doing that, particularly during COVID. This is a little bit of a unique situation in the sense that this lot is somewhat separated, physically separated from the other potential 2 or 3 lots. Normally, I think the scenarios you're referring to, all the lots require a new road to be built.
Right,
In
okay,
this case, you know, if I understand the attorney correctly, the road in front of this particular lot 6 already exists. It
Yes.
has legal frontage. So it's not really, you know, apples to apples at that point.
okay.
So let me get this, is this a by right lot that they could build right off with the road that's there
With the variance, yes.
with the variance?
Other than the fact that it's tied into the original definitive subdivision. If they had chosen to proceed with bifurcating the two projects and separating out this lot, you know, then we'd be in a different scenario, assuming that that was a legal option at the time.
All right. Well, I think it still stands that four members want a bond, and I believe 3 do not. Unless anybody wants to change their vote.
Well, I've got one thought. I'm not fundamentally against a bond. But the request was made based on the bond seeming a bit onerous. I'm not sure that it is. But could we have a combination of a smaller bond and a covenant? Would that give any better satisfaction to the proponent?
Well, I think the covenant is just cumbersome and really hard to manage. And I'm okay with the bond, but in terms of, you know, Glenn's comment about, look, leave it the way it is and don't approve it, it gives them incentive to get that road built out. I would agree with that, but I'm not opposed to the bond either. As
The
an
bond,
option.
the bond's not a very expensive thing to get. It's done all the time. So.
Now, we can secure a bond. Again, I was
Yeah.
looking for an alternate.
Yeah.
And you know, I can see what the board's preference is. It looks to be a bond. And
Yeah.
if that's what we have to do, if that's the board's preference, we'll do it. I just
Right.
thought in a unique situation like this, what Mr. Dugarian was asking for was within the realm of,
All right, so we're looking for an approval of a minor modification. And we're looking for them to get a bond for the
Well,
lot.
at this point, to a point of clarification, wouldn't it make sense for the applicant to withdraw the request, since the original definitive subdivision approval is essentially what the board is proceeding with?
I don't know if there was a provision in the approval for a lot to be released for posting of a bond. So, I mean, I guess I would appreciate if the board could
Okay.
just make that modification.
Can I have
I'll give you a motion for a minor modification to add the verbiage in there for putting a bond up as everybody just agreed on.
I'll second it.
All in
Just
favor?
to,
Oh,
just so we could sell it if we post a bond
Yeah.
and a building permit could be approved and a CO issued, provided a bond is posted. I just wanted to be clear that, you know,
okay, can we add that into the motion?
Yes.
Okay,
Do we need to establish an exact bond amount?
Yeah.
what was your number, 123,900?
Yes, 120.
$123,900 bond.
All right. So Glenn put a motion in,
I'll second.
second. All right. Nancy,
Aye.
Glenn,
Aye.
Mike
Aye.
Walsh,
Aye.
Ken Cool,
Yeah.
Don.
Aye.
I think I got everybody. All right.
thank you.
Now you can take over, Mike Walsh. I will step aside.
Okay, before we get going on this, Mike, I've got some stuff to say.
Sure, go ahead.
You recall the last meeting, I did a disclosure that I have a working engagement with one of the attorneys involved, Ms. Robbins. That continues to be the case, and she's representing Stonegate here. At this point, she actually represents me rather than just engage on a legal matter on something involving the Board of Health. I don't believe it requires a written filing, but I'll put one in anyway because it's complicated enough. It probably needs to get in the record properly. So I'm taking care of that now.
And will you be, with that being said, with Paul's on the line here, are you able to vote on this decision tonight?
I don't know if you wanted me to answer that, but yes,
Yeah.
with that disclosure that Mike would be available to vote.
Great. Okay.
Mike,
Yes, Nancy.
yeah, I need to do a disclosure as well that Melissa is not representing me, but Mike Raisbeck is a business partner of mine, so there's a very remote relationship there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for acknowledging that. All right, anything else before we get started on the Stonegate? So this is for the decision to certify the decision of the 1 Billerica Road and 44 Central Square, the Stonegate project. So Evan, you have the final there. I think, Evan, for clarity, what we're looking for tonight is to walk through if anyone has any additional changes. We've all seen this. There is pieces in here that have been changed with the track changes we had. So I think, Evan, how do we want to proceed with this tonight? What would you suggest?
I would suggest stopping at each track change, comment, and revision. Those are the primary items that the board needs to deliberate and decide whether the highlights, the edits, the revisions are to remain in the document or to be removed. And then from there, review the findings to make sure that they accurately reflect the board's deliberations.
Okay. Can I ask one question for Mr. Haverty? Paul, can I ask you a question just for clarity? On the duration of the public hearing that we had and the duration of the decision. My last meeting, we understood it was that as of January 1st, the governor, the schedule has been reinstated. And
it's as of December 1st.
December 1st.
Yes.
So the applicant was well over the duration of the public hearing and that we allowed it to proceed. We didn't pick it up on it. So we still have to hold to our 30 days. Is that correct, Paul?
So you have 30 days under the bylaw for issuing a decision?
Yes.
Well,
Or making the bylaw says a decision shall be rendered in 30 days. Do we have to have this notarized and to the clerk office within 30 days?
of the close of the hearing?
Yes.
I don't see that as being extended since the project, the time was stopped on December 1st. So any extension pursuant to the COVID order has expired.
Right.
It would have to render its decision pursuant to the bylaw within the 30 days.
Okay, and rendering the decision, which we've already publicly rendered the decision, we're formally rendering it now. That's the 30 days is formally rendering it into the clerk's office.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been asked to look at that issue. I'd have to go back and check what the bylaw states.
It's just that we have to have this in by the end of the day tomorrow. So that's what I'm trying to get to the board is that we have to finalize this tonight. And I'm going to sign off on it tomorrow morning at town hall and then submit this to the clerk. So I think that's the intention tonight anyways. There's been a lot of work here. I just was trying to, if we got into something tonight that I don't want it to push back past the date.
Well, the applicant can always grant an extension of that time as well if necessary.
Okay. All right. So Evan, we'll walk through. Evan, if you don't mind walking with me on this, just guiding us through here. I think some of these are highlighted that I put in here. On item number 5, it talks about the balloon test. I was present for the balloon test the next day, and the balloon test was not successful due to the wind conditions. Now, I put that in. Does anyone on the board have an issue with us putting this in? Because we could
Mike,
not
I
see.
think it was inconclusive as opposed to not successful due to
Okay.
the wind conditions.
Okay. So Evan, can we make that change?
Yes.
Thank you. We're gonna walk through the next one too, right, number 6. So it says the finding was based on the yield plan of February 7th, 2020, demonstrated the baseline number of units that could be built was 32. The finding included a condition that the board, quote, the board expresses concern related to the height of the building and parking. So we're referring there, someone put that in, that comment was made back in February 7th of last year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that comment is referring directly back to the applicability.
Okay. Anyone on the board have an issue with that?
Nope.
Okay. We'll go to the next one. Evan, is Colleen doing it?
Fact 23. So this is town council had asked, is the 50% parking reduction for commercial uses automatic or is it discretionary? And I replied, it is by right, and then just clarified that with the blue insert.
And the reason I had asked that question was just to determine whether or not the board needed to make a finding on that issue.
Okay. Anyone on the board have an issue with that? With that, Evan putting that in?
Nope.
Okay, great.
Next one is fact 25.
Okay, so it says the architecture of the newly residential structure differs significantly from the VCOD Table 2, building design and placement standards in the VCOD.
Town council suggests adding more detail on how the design differs from the building design and placement standards. My comment to the board is that my recollection is that the board did not discuss this issue during the hearing. While architecture was presented, I don't recall the VCOD Table 2 architectural standards being referenced in detail. Certainly the board did go through the waiver, the specific waivers. And as the waiver list indicates, there are numerous waivers related to front facade, variations, windows, transparency, things of that nature.
Nancy, was this your original comment?
This was my original comment. I do remember us talking about the architecture, but I'm okay if you take this out.
Okay. Is everyone on the board okay if we take it out?
I'm okay, but I do recall it being discussed just in very general terms.
Absolutely. But it was discussed.
So I don't necessarily think it needs to be taken out then. If there is no further clarification, then I think it can just simply be left as is.
Okay.
Okay.
But I just,
All right, so-
if there was a greater level of detail that could have been provided, it would have been helpful to provide it.
Yeah, I'm okay with taking it out.
I agree
Okay.
with taking it out.
Okay.
Me too.
Take it out.
All right, we'll take it out.
Okay, next one is 29. I believe Nancy inserted some additional clarity.
Yes, so it says, based on the original design and placement of the new structure. So I'll read it. So the project received approval from the Historical District Commission for the certificate of appropriateness for the Oddfellows and the new 32 multifamily building on February 3rd, 2020. And then Nancy wrote in there, based on the original design and placement of the new structure. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay,
February 3rd, it had to be the original structure.
And it was in the original placement,
Yep.
away from the neighbors. Yep. Okay, the next one is 31. We're talking about taking this out. Is everyone in agreement of taking out the Housing Authority board had this on their January 26, 2021 agenda, but has not submitted a recommendation. And the question was put in there is, why is this in there if they did not submit a recommendation?
I took it out because on February 9th, the Housing Advisory Board did submit a letter
Mhm.
that is referenced in fact number 6.
Okay,
Right.
Okay,
so that's a duplicate, right? So we're just taking that out.
correct.
Okay,
That's fine.
all right, next one down is 32, it looks like.
Yes.
32, the Mass DEP findings that prohibited a new residential structure from being built in the regulatory floodplain would also prohibit 6 of the 8 structures in the presented yield plan from being built, thereby reducing the by rights build out plan to 8 units of the new construction. Any comments about that? The only comment I have about this is this came up in the last meeting, and they before they went forward to going forward down, approve that yield plan, we made our decision. So this, I think this clarifies it, but I think it's correct what it says, but it was not presented that way from the applicant. Is that correct?
That's correct. The applicant's position as they presented it was that you can build in the floodplain per our zoning bylaw and FEMA regulations, as long as the square footage within the floodplain, one, is not habitable and is free flowing.
I think though the DPW letter was referring to the townhouses in the floodplain where you can't have residential on the first floor. And I think that's why they took it out. So I like to leave that in.
Just to clarify, the applicant presented that they were not having living space on the first floor. It was a garage.
For the yield plan though, with the townhouses there.
That's correct. That's correct.
And the DEP came back and said you can't have any kind of enclosure.
Correct. And then the applicant said that the garage would be open, front and back.
Yeah, so basically said that they'd build it on stilts.
Which you can do.
Right, I get
But
that.
if, and I don't want to rehash this again, but if they,
Right.
why did they have to move the building then out of the floodplain? If they could build townhouses in the floodplain with the garage, it's the same first floor, is still the garage.
Because, and if, again, we covered a lot during that public hearing,
Right.
particularly at that last meeting. Katie Enright attempted to explain this. She said that if the developer wanted to build the garage, that parking garage,
Mm-hmm.
with free flowing walls,
Mm-hmm.
then DEP would have allowed it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
This particular developer and his product and with at the prices he's seeking, he did not want to build a product like that.
Okay. All right. So for discussion purposes here for number 32, how many are anyone against? How many people want to leave that in?
I'd leave it.
I'd like to
Anyone
leave it.
Hank, leave it.
Yeah.
Mike, Raisback?
I'm okay with it.
Nancy?
I'd like to leave it, but I'll put on the table, is it worth adding another sentence to it that the developer was requested to present a new proof of concept plan at the last meeting? And, I mean, the fact that we cut them short and voted on it, even though we had asked them to come back with a new proof of concept, bothers me.
Evan, could we put at the end of this, please refer to page 4, first paragraph of findings? Because that's where I call out the applicant's attorney also requested to have an opinion of the board during the meeting prior to addressing any additional requests by board members before the next meeting.
You can, but my comment is, I guess, more of a cautionary to the board and ultimately a question to council. but my interpretation of the record to date is that the applicant answered the question, and that as answered, the building shown, the proof plan building shown in the applicability would be allowed to be built. So I guess my question for council is, assuming that those facts are accurate, is a fact or finding related to this that may or may not be factually accurate worth including? In other words, if we don't know if something is watertight, sorry for the pun, but is it worth putting it in there? And if we do, does it increase the exposure or potential exposure to the board if individual facts or findings may not actually be factually representative for the hearing?
Well, I certainly think that getting the factual findings correct is important. I'm not necessarily going to say that having, a finding turn out to be factually inaccurate is going to invalidate a decision of the board. But I think that to the extent the board can get the factual findings correct, it should endeavor to get them correct. I don't know, I wasn't part of the hearing before, whether or not this finding is correct. I mean, if it's a matter of the proof plan as presented would not be allowed to be proceeded upon because it did not show open garages on the first floor, then that may be technically factually correct, but something that could have been resolved by the applicant simply submitting a revised proof plan that showed open garages on the first floor. And I think that if that is the case, this finding should at least acknowledge that the applicant has stated they could revise their proof plan to comply with this requirement.
And Paul, if I could ask you a question. So with that being said, what actually happened there was this was a request by Nancy to have a yield plan redone. And the applicant, we made our decision, closed everything down, made our decision prior to them addressing Nancy's comment, which is further addressed in the findings that we didn't want the applicant spending any more money if this project was not, because of the other waivers, not going forward.
So I think that the finding can be amended to state that the applicant indicated that they would be able to show a proof plan that does comply by leaving the garages on the first floor open. However, the hearing was closed before the applicant had the opportunity to provide such proof plan.
Yeah.
And then I think his findings would be factually accurate.
I think that's accurate.
I think that works.
Was that accurate? Did everyone else understand it that way?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great.
So were we talking about amending fact number 32 or deleting fact number 32 and then resolving this in the findings that Mike Walsh is referring to?
I think we would delete 32 and resolve it in the findings.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree as well. And that's probably, that's a better way of doing it.
I think it's too wishy here.
Yep.
Fine with me.
All right, Evan, so you'll delete 32.
Yes.
Thank you.
33, in my opinion, somewhat similar to 32, where this did come up at the last public hearing. And then if you recall, Katie Enright indicated to the board that significant structural engineering assessments were done in the Oddfellows. They would submit them to the board if it was beneficial and worthwhile. And the board essentially, closed the hearing and took the vote.
Did we address this anywhere else? Because if we haven't, then it's not worth putting here.
It was not something that I included in any of the drafts. This is the only place I think
let's take it out of here as well. It's my edit.
We just never got to that level of detail.
Yeah, we had things hanging and we've at the last meeting and we finally said, look, just we know that we have things that are going to kill it. There's no use pursuing these.
Okay, the next one I believe is also an insert by Nancy.
This one here, this was mine.
Okay.
It just went into just the way everything was leading up to this. So I wanted to put this in the front. It reads, the board reviewed in detail the detailed waiver list prepared by the applicant engineers Howard Stein Hudson. There was no date on the list of waivers, period. However, the list was emailed to the board by the director. of
Mike, where are
Community
you?
Development. Where are you?
We still need to get to fact 34.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. All right, so that fact 34, the additional sewer contributions from the site were factored into the town usage prior to the current sewer connection moratorium.
Yeah.
That was a fact.
That's right.
I
Yeah,
think, I think the more accurate way of saying this is that it was not subject to the sewer moratorium.
yeah.
Right. That's fine. I mean, you want to say that, that's fine. I think it's just words. I think it's, yeah, what it was, because prior to that, it's in the calculations of the town.
Correct. Okay, we can leave it as is.
All
It
right, so the
mentions
next
the
one,
sewer moratorium. Yep, okay.
that's fine. The next one, I don't know if anyone had any issues with this. I don't probably want to have to read the whole thing, but this was just clarifying. I know, Evan, you mentioned why does it say that there was no date of the list of waivers? Because I look back for record, there is no list of date, there is no date on the list of waivers. But we wanted in for the record that it came in through your email on that date. And so you have that for record. That was the only thing that I could tie to the list of waivers. So what we were reviewing when we were making the decision, we were looking at that list. Does anyone have an issue with what that says?
No.
I think I had made an edit on the second sentence where it says, after all the special permit waivers were reviewed. And I think or I'm recommending deleting special permit. The waivers are waivers, they're not special permits.
Okay.
It's just kind of a technicality.
Okay.
Many of the findings further on in the document are specifically related to special permits.
Okay. Are you guys okay with that, deleting the special permits?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
So, Michael, I do have a question regarding your second sentence. There
Yes.
was no date on the list of waivers. What's the significance of that again?
Well, I mean, we can take that out. It was just that on Howard Stein Hudson's document, there was no date on that. So I was just calling that out. There's no date on that. But what was issued to us at a later date was Evan's email on the 5th. So,
I don't think that, yeah, I don't think that sentence is necessary.
okay.
The under procedural history number 4, where we list all of the submissions.
Yep.
Submission U states detailed waiver list submitted via email on February 5th.
Fine. We'll take that out then. Just take out that
Yep.
there was no date on the list of waivers.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else with that paragraph? Does anyone have an issue with it? Okay, so on findings number 1. Let's see here. It says the board did not make any specific findings related to the PILO. There was a long discussion regarding the PILO and the amount being proposed. Many of the board members, 4 of them, expressed concern or reservation that the $360,000 being proposed was not the proper amount. You guys okay with that comment?
I'd
Yep.
leave out long in discussion, but other than that, I'm good with it.
Okay, take out the word long discussion. So there was a discussion regarding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So somewhere in here, Evan, is there recognition of Chelmsford Housing Authorities?
Yes, that's also in the submission list.
Okay.
Evan, do we want to go through all the underlined blue changes?
I would just quickly go through it. So again, most of it is insertions.
Okay.
These are finding number 2 is an insertion specifically based upon council's, no, I'm sorry. That was adding more detail
Okay.
related to the board's reasoning on the waivers. primarily related to height and number of floors, not generally consistent with the purpose and intent. Same for finding number 3. So those are, again, in the spirit of council asking for the findings to be a bit more specific. Next, jump down to 4A, just some wordsmithing in there.
So can we just go back to the 2 and 3? Is everyone okay with those?
Yeah.
No problems? Okay, all right. 4?
4A is revised per council's comment. The proposed new residential building does not create an appropriate project and is not consistent with the village area.
Yep.
4B, green, I believe is that you, Nancy?
That was me.
Okay.
And I think this those edits, or at least some of those edits came about because of, I think the word dilapidated in here, and I took issue with it.
So it's more descriptive.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Further down on 4B, council's comment is the board may want to consider adding language, finding that that it determined that the impacts associated with the height of the proposed new structure outweighed the benefits. That's something that I just think you just need to discuss, and then we can wordsmith.
Or if it's the case that the board doesn't agree with that, then you should make that finding. But I think, you know, the sense of the board's decision is that it did weigh the balance, the positive aspects of redeveloping the Fisk and Oddfellows buildings against the impacts of adding the large residential building.
That's correct.
That's absolutely true, Paul.
And I think, you know, ultimately you made a determination that it did not outweigh it, so that should be in your finding.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, it sounds like 4B, we're going to add language, basically a copy and paste here, or determine that the impacts associated with the height of the proposed new structure outweighed the benefits of the restoration of the Fisk House and Oddfellows building.
Fine.
Okay, I will add that to 4B. Next one, 4C, there's some general wordsmithing here, but at the bottom in the red does capture what we just talked about in 4C, making a specific finding that the board found that the redevelopment of the Fisk House and Oddfellows buildings did not outweigh the impacts of the requested waivers for the proposed structure. Okay.
Yep.
Next page, please. 4E, similar, and again, in the spirit of council's comment to provide some more specificity. The red highlights as the board finds that the proposed new structure does not promote desirable development patterns due to the excessive height of the proposed structure. F is a continuation going back to the architecture of the new residential structure differs significantly from the VCOD Table 2 design standards. So I think we've covered that based upon our previous conversation.
We eliminated that finding, didn't we?
We eliminated the fact. And this is the first time. This is the first time it's coming up as a finding.
Okay.
So does this accurately reflect the board's discussions, deliberations? I don't know if it differs significantly. I mean, maybe the board didn't get to that level of detail, but as I mentioned,
Well, I
we
think
certainly went through the waivers.
Yeah, we talked about the size of the building and the height of the building, right? The
Yeah,
overall size.
this is referring more to the architecture.
Yeah. Nancy, you want to explain a little bit more on that?
Yeah.
What your feelings were?
So I'm not sure that the board as a group discussed this, but there were certainly questions asked of the applicant to explain it along the way. Because this is one of the documents that I was reviewing and asking questions about. So
Yeah, I mentioned that in my comment.
I'm not sure how to state this because it was addressed, but I agree with Evan that it was not a board group discussion. You know, there were questions asked of the applicant, there were answers to those questions. But it wasn't something that as a board, we batted back and forth.
You didn't get to that point.
Yeah, we were hung up on height. You know, the looks of it. I mean, we talked about the looks of it early on, but
We didn't have, I don't remember any issues with the looks of it. I actually thought people liked the look of the building.
I think the looks of it looked a lot better than the one across the street. They added a lot more detail.
I think the one across the street looked a lot better with its first rendition before they came back for a minor modification that entirely changed the looks of it.
Yes.
So Paul Haverty, based on what you're hearing, what is your suggestion?
I think that perhaps you could add some additional information to indicate that really the only significant difference in concern with regards to the architecture of the new residential structure was the increased height over the VCOD standards.
Or could we just take it out?
Why is the whole F in there?
Yeah, could we
Why
just
don't
take
we
it out?
take it out?
Well, F is in there because it's a
It's
specific
a finding
finding.
you're required to make.
Right.
But we didn't discuss the architect really.
Well, well, first of all, this is the board's deliberation still, so you are within your rights to discuss it now. And beyond that, I think that if this finding is really limited to the height of the structure being the only significant aspect of it that's outside of the design standards, this finding should simply state that.
Right.
So Paul, it's not.
Okay?
The architecture that the design standards call for architecture that is no more than 3 stories high, but basically looks like storefronts with peaked roofs.
Okay.
So the design standards are built around maintaining structures that look like the ones that are already present in the center. And that was
You can make that as a
specifically done-
finding, that it's simply not compatible with the surrounding structures.
It's simply not compatible with the surrounding structures. Those design guidelines were put in place to maintain the look and feel of the old village. And this structure in no way meets those standards. I mean, it looks like new construction. It doesn't look like, it doesn't maintain the design elements of old construction.
So that's what this finding should state.
I would agree with that.
Okay, I will revise that accordingly. Next one is middle of page 7, finding number 8. Some general revisions here. I added specificity related to however the board determines that the size, height, number of floors does not meet the intent.
Fine with that.
Finding 9 needs to be revised. This speaks specifically to, I apologize. So 9.1. Council asked a question, is this statement correct? Was a parking waiver required? I believe we've all determined that they comply with parking for ratios. I believe there were some waivers that may have been required for exterior or perimeter or lot lines related to parking.
Yep.
Okay, so let's see, it says enhancements to parking, traffic and roadways. The project provides parking in excess of the required by the zoning bylaw for the uses proposed. That is an accurate statement.
Did we also have issues that the parking was not necessarily on the property? While it had the adequate number of parking spaces altogether, the parking requirements were not necessarily met on the properties to which they were required? In other words, it required liens across the various properties.
They were proposing it
order
as
to-
shared, shared
Yeah.
via,
Sure.
I don't know if the board expressed that as a concern.
No, because we approved the,
Yeah.
we
Yeah, I
approved
don't think it was
all
a
the
concern, but
setbacks.
it was an issue. I mean, it was certainly a part of the issues presented.
I mean, maybe for purposes of 9B, this is sufficient, just acknowledging that it had excess parking.
I think that's fine. That never really
Yeah.
was the big issue for us. I don't think.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think so either.
it was early on when they had the 100-seat parking lot and they were talking about leasing the church parking lots down the street to valet. So it was until the last meeting when they changed the size of the building and then the parking requirements changed. So it was a major discussion for over a year about parking.
But it wasn't relevant to what was the.
No,
what
it wasn't
final
relevant to the
presentation
final
was.
decision.
Next
Because-
one, 9D. I'm not sure who added this. It very well could have been me. It was determined that the brick would be
I guess
supplied by the,
you can't see me, right? It's come out as gray strand for some reason, but
It was, yeah, I put this in, Evan, on this part of it.
I'm on mute. You can't see me, right?
I can hear somebody. Evan, on this one, I added this one because of, it talks about the walkways and the brick pavers and all that, but it was determined that the brick was to be supplied by the applicant for work to be completed by others.
I think it was actually offered that way by the applicant.
I
Right.
think that's
Am I
right.
correct? I mean, it wasn't that it was determined. They said they would.
that was, I think, negotiated in the DPW memo,
Yeah.
speaking about the sidewalk within the town right away. Correct? They were gonna
Right,
rip-
Yeah.
what I was trying to express here was the fact that everyone keeps talking about how they're enhancing these brick walks and all this stuff, but they weren't doing it when in the final.
Yeah.
They were paying in lieu of that money. They weren't actually gonna do the work. It was
No, I
going
think
to-
they
were gonna
were,
supply the bricks, weren't they?
I think the town was supplying the bricks when they were doing the work.
That's the
No.
way it was.
Either
I don't
under,
think so.
so maybe to simplify this, Christina's letter is noted in procedural 7. So I don't know if you want to put this level of detail in your finding, or you just want to rely on the contents of her letter.
You can take it out. I'm fine with taking it out. I'm sure it was my comment, so if you want to take it out, that's fine. If the board feels it not necessary, take it out, if it's not accurate.
Well, it's more accurately covered in the letter.
Okay, take it out. Thank you, Evan.
Okay. Continuing on, 9E, this refers to the affordable housing. The highlighted is a partial payment in lieu has been proposed for the creation of affordable housing elsewhere in town. The board never came to an agreement on the PILO. We looked at the PILO we looked at the project PILO as a whole. I think, Mike, this may have been your insertions.
I think this was, well, I think this might have been, I don't know if it's Nancy, I'm gonna put words in your mouth, but this was just directly regarding the 8-bedroom unit.
Okay.
We were looking at it as a whole. We didn't get into a discussion regarding the PILO for just the 8-bedroom. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone on the board, I don't know if you remember that.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So since we are deliberating, and I agree, the board never really discussed whether the 8 units should include a affordability component. And I think the board understands that it wasn't necessarily calculated as part of the PILO. Are those facts as we understand them?
I would agree with that, Evan.
And is it also safe to say that the board didn't really discuss or have any, or didn't express any major concerns, issues related to the 8?
No, I think it's simply more that we never got to it.
We were looking at them as a whole. We weren't looking at them individually. So we looked at, when we discussed the PILO at length, the discussion, we never came to a final conclusion. It was on the project as a whole, including the 8. We never specifically separated the 8 and talked about PILO. That's
Correct.
That's where I'm caught on this one here.
Right.
So the way it was presented, and correct me if I'm wrong, the 360 was only applicable to the 32 unit building. Is that how you guys understood it? Or did you interpret that the 360 included the 8?
I thought it was for the whole project.
Yeah, I thought it was for the whole
That was
project.
my impression as well.
Because we were considering the whole project as one. We weren't individually breaking apart all these approvals.
Okay. So then your comments are accurate. We just need to wordsmith it a little bit.
Okay.
The board never came to an agreement on the PILO. Maybe period and delete. We looked at the project PILO as a whole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't add.
The only thing I would add is I think I would say the board never came to an agreement on the sufficiency of the PILO.
On the adequacy of the PILO?
That's fine too.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one is under number 2. Some wordsmithing, and then council indicated recommending adding comments regarding the incompatibility of the proposed new structure with the surrounding area, which I have done in the blue text.
That looks good.
How with that?
Okay, next one, middle of page 9. Let's see, letter C. This is specific to the design standards. So council again is recommending we add more detail between Nancy's edits and my edits. I think we've covered that. I specifically included 3 floors are permitted, 4 are proposed, and a height of 35 feet is permitted and 48 is proposed.
Satisfies me.
That's accurate.
Okay. The next one, I think, Mike, I think you inserted this one.
Right, and I inserted the next line right there where it says it was not determined if all mechanical units were to be screened from view. They were proposing a screen of 36 inches above the roof line on the flat roof portion. Do you guys recall that, or you want to leave that in or take it out?
I'd leave it in.
Yeah.
It wasn't determined.
The key thing here, it wasn't determined that it would block all the units when they were proposing the 36 inches high.
Right, the screening was to hide the units, but like you said, if they had a couple units that were too big, they didn't address that.
Yeah.
But you probably should fix the spelling in it.
Reno?
That's why you know it's me, so. I left it in there. And then on number 10, I put in the facts was that during the February 10th, 2021 meeting, that we had an in-depth discussion with the applicant on the potential occupancy permit requirements for the project, whether there would be an individual permits or all of the 3 buildings renovations will be treated as one. The concern of some of the board members was that the multifamily building would be constructed and the Oddfellows and the Fisk building proposed renovations would not be completed. The board and the applicant could not come to an agreement on this topic. It was mentioned that portions of the project renovation would be bonded to guarantee their completion. This wasn't a finding, this wasn't part of the decision, but this was a discussion that we had. And I tried to reflect that accurately.
You know, they came right out and said that they were just gonna do the outside of the buildings. If I
With
remember
followed
right.
up with the future potentially of the other 2
Right.
renovations. So
Yep.
that's why I tried to reflect that, if we want to wordsmith it or leave it as is.
I think that gets the point across.
Yeah, I think it says it.
Yeah.
I thought the guy with the restaurant was, he stated at one meeting that he wasn't gonna just do the outside and let it sit. He was gonna complete the interior. Just not the restaurant portion.
Right, the interior upstairs, but the restaurant was not gonna be built out for.
Right.
they didn't
I
have
just want to
space
clarify that's
But
just for the restaurant.
Due to COVID, right,
Right.
delay.
So yeah, I'd leave it.
Okay,
On the next one, Evan, go down on the decision. So this is where I cut and paste. So I moved it around. So we'll take out that line where it says there was no date on the list of waivers. That's the same as we discussed earlier.
Right.
And then you're gonna take out the special permit.
yes,
So then what I did here on this page, the next page, is I listed out, just for clarification, everything we discussed one by one. If we had an issue or if it was existing, no issue. And then I clarified based off of Evan's comments, instead of a couple of members or being general, I went back to my notes and I put the number of members that if we had an issue with a particular one. Evan, do we want to walk through each one of these?
I don't think we need to, but it's
Okay.
it's certainly up to the board.
I think you pretty much nailed it, Mike.
There was basically, I think there was a few of them we had issues with, and there was, so 25 total, 24 waivers that we looked at.
So in addition to what we've just discussed, I emailed out, Donald had some specific comments and Henry had several comments. Do either of you want to present, or do you want, we can maybe bring up the email if need be?
No, I'm good with what's presented here.
Okay.
I'll go
Donald,
along with that.
Donna, was there anything in the comments you submitted that warrant more discussion?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So
All
what
right.
we've normally done as a board is you would vote to kind of ratify the decision. And as Chairman Walsh indicated, he will swing by the office sometime tomorrow after I make these edits. He'll review them and sign the decision, and we'll get it clocked in. And that would comply with your 30-day requirement to get a decision clocked in.
Okay, can I get a motion from someone to ratify the decision that we just discussed?
I will
give
do
you-
that.
Nope, Mike got it.
Mike got it.
I'll second it.
And Glenn would second it. So I'm gonna just do a roll call. I'll come right down. Mike,
Yeah,
Dawn,
Yes.
Hank,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes,
Nancy,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So, thank you, Evan, for your hard work on this. And Paul, thank you very much for attending and clarifying tonight. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
thanks, Paul.
Is Mr. Parley out there? There he is.
Chairman Walsh sounds really good.
Evan, did you need me to stick around for the zoning articles?
I don't
Yeah.
think I need you to if you'd like to. I mean, if the board wants.
We still got quite a bit to go through too.
If
I
you
don't know
want us,
how much we'll have with the zoning articles tonight.
Yeah, I don't think we need it at this point.
You don't need me to stay?
Doesn't sound like it.
All right, good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, Paul.
Hey,
Thanks.
Paul.
Right.
All right. Well, 21 through 29 Drum Hill Road. Chelmsford Realty Management for a demolition of the existing two-story, 12,240 square foot structure and the construction of a one-story, 7,615 foot structure, multi-tenant structure with consistent of a fast food drive-through and associated site improvements. The CB district is not 0.92 acres, assesses map 27, block 101, lot 5. Community Enhancement and Overlay District, CIOD, and associated permits with this section. 195-12, 195-15C, and any other permit relief may be required under Chelmsford zoning bylaws to allow this project in use. And that's the legal part of it. Is there somebody here to present this for us?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Katie Enright with Howard Stein Hudson. I'm here tonight with Casey Ferreira, also of Howard Stein Hudson. Colleen, can I share my screen?
Yes.
Just find the... Okay, this might be helpful. So this project was previously approved by this board quite some time ago. We went through the COID and the full site plan review. So we're here tonight with just a minor modification. As you know, I believe the building right now is outfitted with the Verizon store. That used to be in the previous building that was on the site and a dental office. They've since found a fast food restaurant tenant for the drive-through location. And so we're here tonight with some minor modifications. Basically, these little areas in red are what's on your plan today. A lot of it has to do with parking lot striping and some additional signage. So things like the arrows that are shown within the parking lot. We made the drive-through lane slightly wider than the previous approval. There's some striping in front of the dumpster areas, some additional signage. And also the decision previously had allowed us to add a patio in front of the building and utilize one of the parking spaces to do so. And this tenant does require the patio. So we're showing the patio here also, which removed one parking space from in front of the building. Besides that, we've also added a bike rack to the plan, and we've shifted the front door of that fast food unit slightly from where it was previously. So we're here tonight just seeking these minor modifications to the site plan that was previously approved by this board to allow us to move forward with this additional work on site. That's it.
All right, is Christina still available?
Sorry, yes, I'm here.
The only reason I bring this up is I was at the Verizon store the other day. The old driveway on the right-hand side of this lot, I saw bark mulch flowing down the road when it was raining pretty heavy the other day. They never took the driveway out. Is this something that's supposed to be corrected? Was it supposed to be corrected in the original? You know, the old driveway is basically there. They kind of built on top of it, so it pitches out onto the road.
Well, I can go take a look at it tomorrow.
I mean, if we're building out and doing stuff here, you know where I'm talking about. You come in on the left-hand side, the right-hand side of the lot originally had a driveway that came in. I think it should be looked at if we're doing something. Yeah.
Is it per the plan, Henry, or are there still elements of the plan that they haven't?
Well, I'm seeing you got the grass and you got the area in the front there with the bushes and everything. The other reason I say this, I was sitting there at the Verizon store the other day, it was pouring rain and bark mulch was going down the road.
Okay. Maybe Christina and Katie can look at that.
Sure.
Could just be a construction deficiency of some sort.
Yeah, there should have been some sort of curbing or hedging to hold that.
I think we have a couple letters that have been received.
All right, do we have the letters or Colleen gonna read them in?
They were likely emailed to you, but it's probably easier if Colleen can
That's
read
the
them.
discussion we had earlier in the evening.
Christina, do you have yours handy?
Yes.
You want to read yours?
Fine.
And I think the only other one was fire prevention.
Okay. Dear members, this office has reviewed the site plans by Howard Stein Hudson Associates consisting of 8 sheets dated February 23rd, 2021, and a hydrology/stormwater standards report dated March 3rd, 2021. As a result of this review, this office has the following concern. Prior to restaurant occupancy, a final site as-built shall be submitted and approved, as-built to include a letter from the engineer stating that all stormwater devices have been built to satisfy Mass stormwater standards. Provide all supporting documents and calculations. The as-built shall be from a ground survey and submitted in AutoCAD and paper form. Sincerely, Christina Papadopoulos.
You said there's a letter from the fire?
Yeah, there should be.
Give me 1 second, guys. Kevin, I'm not finding the one from Dan.
I think you're muted, Evan.
While I'm looking for that fire prevention, was there one from Board of Health?
Board of Health didn't have any concerns.
Okay. Let's see, the only one I got from fire prevention today was 248 Princeton.
I have Dan's.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes. Sorry about that. Dear members of the board, the Fire Prevention Office has reviewed the proposed minor modification to the existing property at 2129 Drum Hill Road and finds the following. The fire department apparatus access is acceptable and unchanged from the previously approved site plan. The proposed dumpster location is acceptable. The only concern raised by this office is that adequate vehicle impact protection be provided for the proposed expanded outdoor patio. The Fire Prevention Office would be amenable to the developer's guarantee that this vehicle impact protection would be provided at some point before the occupancy of the 2,723 square foot proposed fast food restaurant unit. This office would approve this plan with these conditions, and I ask the board to make this part of their approval process. Captain Katufis. I also had one from North Chelmsford Water, no concerns.
Those are all the letters.
We'll put it around the board, see if anybody's got any concerns. Glenn?
The one question I got is where you're putting that little patio thing and losing a couple of parking spots, do you still have adequate parking?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So basically, based on the previous approval, it was already written into the decision that we would lose a parking space to do the patio. So we had already sought a special permit for a few less spaces than were required.
Okay. That's all I got. I'm fine with it.
Nancy? Nancy?
that me?
Yeah?
Yeah, my internet just went unstable, so hopefully this works. A question for Katie. Katie, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I just have myself on mute when I'm not talking.
Okay. I was taking a look at the landscaping and landscape materials. You have some low-growth sumac along the sidewalk that comes in from the front. Is that a change? And is it already there?
So I'm actually not sure. The project has been in construction pretty much since it was approved, and we haven't completed our as-built yet and certified to it. So that's something that we'll be doing once the improvements are complete.
Okay, so I do have a concern. If it's already in place, it is what it is. If it's not already in place, please take my concern with some seriousness. The plant materials that are along that sidewalk, they're low sumac. They're basically a hybrid of a native species. They are very, very hardy. They turn nice red colors in the fall. They form a mat and hold the soil. So there's a lot of really good things going for them. On the other hand, they look an awful lot like poison ivy. They are not poisonous. Nobody's going to get a rash from them, but you might want to consider changing that plant material so as not to upset people.
Is that it, Nancy?
That's it.
All right, Mike Walsh,
No, I'm good. No questions.
Mike Raisback,
I'm fine.
Don,
Katie, once you complete the project and have the as-built, will this address some of Henry's concerns about the runoff?
Yes, I believe so. Christina and I can certainly take a look at that more, obviously quicker this week, if that makes sense to Christina, and see if that can be addressed immediately. But yes, we will be reviewing the grading and the drainage upon completion of the as-built.
Sure. I have no questions
Hank.
further.
I'm all set, thanks.
All right. This is a public meeting. We actually, minor modification, we don't need a public input. All right.
You want a motion?
Yeah.
I give you a motion to approve the minor modification as presented.
Second. Oh. Mike seconded.
What?
Mike Raisback got it.
Mike Raisback got it. I'll do the roll call. All right, Glenn,
Yes.
Mike Walsh,
Yes.
Mike Raisback,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Nancy. We lost Nancy again. Nancy.
Yes. Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
I'm a yes, unanimous. All right. Moving on. The one that I think everybody here is looking for is 39 North Road, Matt Hansen. He's looking for a special permit under 195-8 for non-conforming use of structures, changes, extensions, alterations of a non-conforming structure and other structures in any other permit relief may be required under zoning bylaws to allow change of existing and altering of a current or pre-existing non-conforming use, two-family or a structure of a new two-family on the property. Matt.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. Good to be back. I do have Brian Melissi with me, and at this point, I'd like to ask him to bring us through the application, unless there's anything else right now you'd like to hear from me. He's got all the good details.
Oh, I can go for Brian.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Brian Melissi with Whitman and Bingham Associates. Here representing Matt Hansen, who's the property owner. We're in front of you tonight as you read in the notice, requested a special permit under section 195-8B, non-conforming uses and structures. I think I turned myself off here a little bit. Nope, the host has stopped it, so nobody wants to see me. I hope you can still hear me.
We can still hear you.
Perfect.
We're gonna let you speak, and then we got a bunch of letters and stuff to go through too, so.
All right, I'll be real quick, Mr. Chair. I just want to, very quickly, the property is located at 39 North Road, which is right at the intersection of North and Crosby Lane. That's located in the Residence B zoning district. Parcel is currently developed with an existing two-family. According to assessor's records, it was built circa 1920. The structure is a pre-existing non-conforming use. Since it's a two-family, it's also a pre-existing non-conforming structure. It's too close to the two front property lines. It is a corner lot. So the applicant's proposing to construct a standalone duplex on the lot, and as such is asking your board to award a special permit under section 195-8B to allow the non-conforming use, the pre-existing non-conforming use, which is the two-family, be changed to another non-conforming use, which would be multifamily. At the beginning, the applicant, Matt, had kind of reached out to staff and was kind of directed to town council to just try to get a preliminary opinion on whether something like this, whether the board actually has the right to grant a special permit of this. And back in December 15th, we did receive an email from town council Paul Haverty. I won't read the whole thing, but it does say that the board may award a special permit to change a non-conforming use in accordance with this section if it determines that such change or extension shall not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood. I do have a plan ready to share. I don't know if Colleen can call it up, of the submitted site plan that we do show. There it is. Shows the existing structure out to the west or the left side of the plan. There's an existing dwelling, an existing garage that sit on the lot. And you'll see our proposed duplex is moreover to the right-hand side of the lot or the east. Should be noted that the duplex meets all the dimensional criteria for the underlying Residence B zone, front yard offsets, sideline offsets, rear line offsets. It meets, the lot would meet lot coverage and everything else, again, under the underlying zoning district. Matt did go around to some of the neighbors, some of the abutters to discuss the project. He passed out a little bit of a flyer showing what he plans on building architecturally wise. And we did receive a comment from the abutter directly across Crosby Lane that asked us to maybe reconfigure the driveways there so we don't just come right straight out to where her driveway is. And although this plan doesn't represent that yet or doesn't reflect that yet, we're certainly willing to work with the abutters on that. I know you said you had some letters to read in, so I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair, and we'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, Colleen, you said you had a few letters on this? Colleen? Colleen?
Christina, do you want to read yours?
Hi, guys. I have them. I'm sorry. I couldn't see anything with the shared screen up. Okay. This one is from the Board of Health. She says the new two-family home would be required to have an on-site septic system due to the current moratorium to tie into the town sewer and would need to meet all the Title V state code requirements. It's Board of Health, Sue Rosa. Captain Kutufis from Fire has no comments. And Lieutenant Spence has no comments. That's all I had. Always, and Christina has hers too. Let me see if I can find it.
I can read it if you can't find it.
I have it up now. I can read it. Why don't you do it though? You're better with this.
Okay. Dear members, this office has reviewed the site plans by Whitman and Bingham Associates consisting of one sheet dated February 10th, 2021. As a result of this review, this office has the following comments. 1, this department shall be notified when work on site is to commence in order to arrange for inspections. 2, the applicant should mitigate stormwater runoff from the roof. Any revisions to the drainage system shall be submitted and approved by this office. 3, a stormwater operation and maintenance plan shall be created and followed as described in the report. Copies of any inspections or other reports done in accordance with the plan shall be forwarded to the engineering office. 4, a site as-built should be provided upon completion of the work on site. As-built to include a letter from the engineer stating that all stormwater devices have been built to satisfy Mass stormwater standards. Provide all supporting documents and calculations. The as-built shall be from a ground survey and submitted in AutoCAD and paper form. 5, confirmatory testing shall be performed in the area of infiltration per stormwater management guidelines. Testing shall be witnessed by the Chelmsford DPW Engineering Division. All unsuitable material, if any, discovered in the excavation for the infiltration system shall be removed and disposed of in accordance with state and local regulations. 6, a sewer moratorium imposed by the Chelmsford Department of Public Works that became effective on September 15, 2020 will apply to this project because it contains a new duplex that was not applied for prior to the effective date of the moratorium. Since the moratorium is applicable, they will not be allowed to tie into the town sewer system and will require an on-site sewer disposal system. 7, a road opening permit is required from the Chelmsford DPW Highway Division for work within the Crosby Lane right-of-way. 8, trench permits shall be filed as necessary per 520 CMR 14, Chapter 82A. 9, the design engineer is in the process of completing design and drafting revisions to the plans according to the recommendations of this office. If you have any questions, contact Christina Papadopoulos.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of letters from abutters.
Go for it.
The first one is from Thomas Doyle. He's a lawyer. Dear sirs and madams, my wife and I reside at 15 Crosby Lane, Chelmsford, Massachusetts. We watched with interest Mr. Hansen's attempt to have his parcel rezoned, which thankfully the board recognized would really serve no useful purpose for anyone other than the applicant. Historically, the property has needed a sprucing up, but the occupants created no disturbances and were well known to all of the neighbors. Now we look at a property with signs and banners, storm door flapping in the breeze, and visits from the police. As someone who has drafted hundreds of leases over my career, one must assume that the tenant leases prohibit visual displays regardless of content. We have no objection to the content, but it certainly does nothing to make the property appealing. The above issues are potentially doubled with 2 more housing units. Crosby Lane does not permit a UPS truck and car from passing by one another without one or the other pulling over due to the narrow width of the street. More traffic, more issues. Further, it strikes me that section 195(8)B was never intended to be used as a bootstrap for situations such as the one presented. I believe historically the regulation might allow, for example, an addition to be added to the existing structure. I doubt it was ever intended to allow an applicant to erect an additional dwelling which could not pass muster under present zoning requirements. It is a stretch of the imagination to interpret the terms changes, extensions, and alterations, envisioning that which is being proposed. Moreover, if this is allowed, how would the planning board be able to deny the Doyles or the Greenwoods, 14 Crosby Lane, the right to build additional houses on our respective properties? We both have very large lots, and it would seem that this would establish a precedent to which the board would be bound moving forward. The applicant knew he was purchasing a single building lot, and thus there can be no real expectation that doubling the use of the property would be permitted. For all the foregoing reasons, we strongly urge the board to deny this request as being outside of the purview of what 195(8)B was intended to address and to allow for no further deterioration to the neighborhood. Very truly yours, Thomas B. Doyle, Esquire. I have one more. Let me just open it up a little bit. This one is to the members of the Chelmsford Planning Board. My name is William Harvey, and I am the owner of 3234 North Road, a multifamily dwelling consisting of 8 one-bedroom apartments situated on 0.37 acres of land. I fully support Mr. Hansen's application for the special permit under 195-8B for the construction of a 2-unit residential structure. The application plan submitted by Mr. Hansen will have minimal impact on the neighborhood, and the intent and purpose of the bylaw will be met and will not substantially degrade from the intent and purpose of the bylaw, nor be a detriment to the neighborhood. This board, as well as all abutters of interest, should fully support the applicant's request for the special permit due to the fact that, in my opinion, the applicant's proposal is underutilizing the unimproved land, which could easily accommodate 3 to 4 duplex units or a multifamily building. For the aforementioned reasons, I support Mr. Hansen's special permit application. Very truly yours, William Harvey. I believe that's all I have.
All right, I'll run this around the board, then we'll open it up to the public. All right, let's start off with Mike Walsh.
I pulled the short straw, huh?
Yep.
So, you know, I looked at this, I look at the minimal impact. I just have a couple of questions. Is there any architectural drawings that we can look at? This is in the historical district, if I'm correct. And if we approve this project, shouldn't we be approving that it meets and have historical, the historical commission look at this first? That's one question I have. So maybe we can. The other question I have is, you guys know my feelings on non-conforming, and I think non-conforming, this was not the intent of this piece of it, to put a whole nother structure on the property. It's non-conforming because of the 2-family that was present when the zone was changed. I don't think it's gonna, I've been down that street. It's very tight. I was down this past week twice looking at the property. I know right next to St. Mary's, you got a lot of land there, and I just get caught up on the non-conforming piece of it. So that's where I'm at. And then with the intent of the home, adding an additional house to it, it's a duplex. If this was in a zone that allowed duplexes, you wouldn't even have enough square footage to put a duplex in a zone that was RC, where they require 20,000 square feet. You wouldn't have that to put a second home on a property. And that's where I think the board's got to think about that. And then the other question I have, we mentioned the historical, is how does this play in the role that I believe this same applicant is putting forward a petition to rezone this area for the fall town meeting? And what does that play into this decision if this goes forward now? What does that play into that? And I'm not sure all the neighbors know that petition is that petition's into City Hall, Town Hall, and it will be on the agenda in the fall. Those are just some of my concerns. I understand the applicant wants this. I think it would be good for the area, but I just get caught up on some of these dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So that's what I have, Henry.
Mike Raisbeck.
Well, you know, I have no fundamental objection to the building, but I will say that it looks an awful lot like taking a piece of RB and rezoning it RC. That's effectively what you get. And I believe that may be what the petition that we're discussing is attempting to do. I think the lot, I think, is about 40,000, and that would support 2 duplexes in RC. So I'm a little hesitant. I'll think about it, but I'm a little hesitant to do by this permitting what is really a matter of zoning.
Okay, Nancy.
Yeah. First of all, I'm having a hard time seeing what the current non-conforming situation is. I understand the setbacks are non-conforming to today's standards, but you know, we redid the bylaws such that properties can use the setbacks that were in place when it was built. or can extend the setbacks that were in place when it was built. This is not a building extension that we're talking about, so I don't think that's even applicable as an issue to consider. A two-family is not a non-conforming situation on this property because the primary structure was built before 1939, and therefore it's permitted in the use tables to have a two-family in that structure. So that's not non-conforming. So the first premise is I don't know why this is coming in as an extension or a modification of a non-conforming property. The second issue is that this is very much an implementation of what we tried to get past town meeting in terms of preservation of historic structures, to be able to split off and add another residence on a conforming property, and town meeting turned it down flat. The residents of this town absolutely do not want density increased, and that's exactly what this proposal is a density increase. The planning board does have the authority to authorize a second principal structure on a property. So yes, we can do that. But typically on a residential property, that would be an enclosed pool, not a whole nother house or another duplex in this situation. To me, if this plan is to go forward, it needs to be rezoned first. And I have serious doubts if town meeting is going to rezone it to a denser implementation, but they can certainly try.
Okay, you done?
Yeah, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
All right, Dawn.
Yeah, I'm curious to know why actually this is coming forward now as a special permit in advance of some type of zoning at town meeting. And also, I need more understanding of what's going on with the abutters. Of course, we've heard from
I
Mr.
think we're
Doyle.
here for someone this evening.
Yeah, yeah. So that's who I am.
All right, Hank.
Yeah, I'm not big on it. I mean, it's zoned RB, single family. You get a non-conforming multifamily, two-family, because that was there prior. And I think we'd be rezoning just to have that two-family, the new two-family put in. So I'd rather see what happens at town meeting.
Glenn.
Yeah, I'm kind of stuck halfway in between this. On one side, you get statements that all the neighbors are kind of going along with it, and now it kind of sounds like maybe some of them aren't. I kind of see how he's trying to get it done. Would it work? It probably would work. Would it be detrimental to the neighborhood? I don't think it would. I'm kind of fine with it, I think.
All right, Colleen, I'm assuming we've got some people out there that want to talk about this.
And we don't have a chat, so if you could raise your hand, we'll say Jeff Brown
All
first.
right, we're gonna start with Doug.
Oh.
All right, they put their hands up. I can at least pick them.
Okay.
The first time I've ever picked you, Doug, for anything.
I'll defer to Jeff.
Well, this is the only time I've ever beat Doug out, so I'm thankful. So.
That's not true.
That's true. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jeff Brown. I'm an attorney in Lowell. I'm general counsel for Princeton Properties and have done my fair share of zoning approval and permitting of projects all over the state. I'm here on behalf of the Chelmsford Collaborative Church and spoke with Father Brian, the pastor, this afternoon. And our comments are similar to those raised by Mr. Walsh, Attorney Doyle. I think Nancy raised these issues as well. I don't I haven't studied extensively zoning bylaw 195-8. But it says alteration and extension of a non-conforming. So you have your non-conforming property, the historic building. This isn't an alteration or extension of a non-conforming. This is 300 feet away. This isn't an alteration or extension. I don't know how it fits under this zoning bylaw. I think, as others mentioned, it's just an end run around a zoning change. So that's more of a legal issue that I raised for the board, and I think someone else also raised, what precedent does it set for these other properties along Crosby that are large in nature? Can they now add another structure? So I raised that as a legal issue. Father Brian in the church probably has a kinder heart than me as an attorney, no doubt there.
You have a heart?
Momentarily, on occasion. So our concern is, and I think Doug and I have made this comment at hundreds of meetings we've been before, this looks to me like you're trying to put, 10 pounds of you-know-what into a 5-pound bag. It's just way too dense. There's too much going on back there. If the church was going to support anything, it would support a structure, a single-family structure, assuming you get by this this alteration and extension, the 195-8 issue. So that would be about as far as the church would go as far as supporting anything. I was curious as to why there was 2 septic systems designed there when I can see a design for connections to public sewer, but I now understand through the discussion about the moratorium and now that you need that, that's understandable. We're not crazy about that because that's right next to the church administration building and right next to the church and the parking lot. And someone else had raised, I believe, the historic commission compliance. I'll leave that to the board as an issue. As with any development next to an abutter, I think if you're going to have a fair amount of density back there, and you do, we would want extensive screening along our boundary. This plan shows 3 or 4 bushes or whatever. We would want extensive screening if that were to take place. So I think many of these issues have already been raised, and I was kind enough to have the opportunity to get in front of Doug, and I don't want to abuse that. So I'll yield to Mr. Hausler, and I appreciate the board's opportunity to give me a chance to speak and to identify. But I think the real issue that several of you have identified about this coming as a under 195-8 to me is a legal precedence that would be very, very dangerous. And but all in all, the church is supportive of Matt. He's been a good neighbor, but this is way too much.
Matt, I will take and let you respond, but usually I take and get the input for the other people and I'll have you respond at the end, if that's all right.
Okay, I understand. I just very quickly at a high level, because I think the first 2 or 3 comments were all about the particular section I'm applying under, and just wanted to clarify the process and why we're here. Brian and I didn't do it in the back.
I'll let you reply to all that when we get all the questions out first. All right, Doug.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, for your time. I don't want to take too much more of your time. I'm representing Ronald and Anne Marie Greenwood, who are at 14 Crosby Lane, across the street from the Doyles. All the comments suggested by Mr. Attorney Brown, by Tom Doyle, by several members of the board are exactly what my client's view would be. And very clearly, we've told the applicant not once and not twice, but at least 3 times that the only way that we could support this would be through a town warrant article, changing this from an RB to an RC for the entire road of Crosby Lane. So it's either all agree to this by town vote and a warrant article or nothing. And it was my suggestion that this application be withdrawn. That apparently was not solid enough for the applicant. He wants to go forward. I'd ask that you just deny it. I don't think you have the jurisdiction to allow it, quite frankly. I think it would be, if it falls under anything, it's 108D, which would be a variance standard. But I don't even think really there it's appropriate. So for all those reasons, this isn't a stretch. This just isn't permitted, period, the end. And I'd ask you to reject it.
All right, Danny, I saw you put your hand up earlier.
Yes, I did. I'm Daniel Hyder. I'm the facilities manager of St. Mary's. I was looking at the layout of the walkway versus the proposed septic system, which is concerning because it is so close to that walkway that we use that's going to be a problem. The other thing is we have children, and if those are actually leach fields, that it looks like that is the intent. The leach fields have vent pipes, and vent pipes emit odor. I'm not trying to put the kibosh on anything, but this is an issue. I just wanted to bring that forwards. And that's about all I have to say about it. I agree with Jeff and what he had said. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
All right, Colleen, is there anybody else out there?
I'm not seeing anybody.
Oh, here we get
I have
somebody.
a question. Hi. I'm Tammy Arena, 3 Burton Lane. My question is basically what Nancy talked about, whether it is or isn't non-conforming. So is every old house that has gone through the conversion going to be non-conforming? And are they all going to come back and try to do something like this if you allow this? There are lots of them. That's all. I mean, is it non-conforming or not?
Oh, most old homes now are non-conforming just because.
No, I'm talking about specifically the 2-family, because they can do a conversion of dwelling, and there's been lots of them allowed.
Yeah, there is a section in the bylaw that allows a house pre a certain date. You can take in
38.
Yeah, but we're
So-
not. This is something totally different that's in front of us right now.
How is it different?
They're building a whole new structure.
No, I know they are, but they're coming at it saying that it's non-conforming.
I think it's non-conforming because it's less than 40,000 square feet and the zoning for RB is 40,000 square feet.
It's not less than.
No, it's not.
39.
It's not less than
It's
40,000
a
square
conforming
feet.
lot.
I think they're saying it's the 2-family, and that's what I don't understand.
It's not zoned for 2-family right now.
But it's old.
No, it's not. The lot is, but the house is, the existing dwelling is, but we've got to work amongst ourselves and work something out here, but I can't. All I can say is stay tuned and listen to the rest of the meeting, and you'll get what we come out of this eventually.
Okay.
All right, Matt.
No, thank you. I really appreciate all that feedback and those comments, particularly from the board and all the neighbors. Just wanted to start by just answering a few of the questions that were brought up. To that last question, my understanding is the difference would be homes built, before the 1930s can legally convert now to 2-family, but that's different. That this house was actually constructed as a 2-family, so it's always been a 2-family. So that's basically the main difference. And I think that goes in line to a lot of the other questions about the Doyles and the Greenwoods as well. If this is approved, then there's a precedent, and other big old homes with land would just go and do the same thing. But those aren't, those uses are not non-conforming. There was a lot of questions, I think, from the board members about the specific section being applied under, and I am by no means a zoning expert or an attorney. And when I first met, actually the second time I met with Evan to discuss this, he recommended I bring the whole proposal and everything by town council to get his opinion on it. He reviewed our zoning bylaw in several cases and said this wasn't allowable use. So I wouldn't be here if town council hadn't said that it was allowable. Again, not a requirement, but certainly that it is an allowable special permit application. You know, that being said, if if the will of the board is that there's a better avenue, or you'd prefer to see a zoning attempt change, I'm certainly willing to look at that avenue as well. Not trying to force something on anybody that's not something that's allowed by zoning or comfortable with, but this path was recommended to me by a few people, and I was told by town council that it's allowable for your board to review it in this manner. Just quickly on one or two other points regarding the structure versus use, I think that's something that it's easy to get caught up on, because the thing that most individuals are most familiar with is changing of non-conforming structures. I think almost every municipality has a bylaw that allows that. That would be like an extension off the back of the building. So for one, being a historic building, I just didn't even want to touch the existing building just because it's historic in the town center. You could do an addition on the back and add a third unit, but I just didn't want to do that one because it's historic. But the second is Chelmsford bylaw and a lot of others allow for actual changes of the entire non-conforming use, as long as it's not substantially more detrimental. So again, I think I understand how where the feelings are in this, but I do just want to explain the difference that our bylaw doesn't just allow for an extension of a structure. It actually allows for a change of the use itself. And there's a burden substantially more detrimental or not. And then I just wanted to highlight one more time regarding the neighborhood, because there was a question about whether this is just going to happen all over town. I do firmly believe that this is a unique property. It has nearly over 400 feet of frontage, and the current building is about 20 feet from the corner of the property line. So there aren't a lot of non-conforming uses and structures that have this much additional frontage and unbuilt land. And particularly being in the town center, why, talking to town council about whether it would be detrimental to the neighborhood, I'll just close with, and this same argument would go to if this board was going to support the rezoning, this would be what I'll tell you. If you're standing in this yard where this house is going to be built, you're looking across the street at a 2-family on 0.3 acres, a 3-family property at 20 Worthen Street on 0.27 acres, an 8-family, as was mentioned, on 0.3 acres, and a 32-unit apartment building on 30 Worthen Street on 1.7 acres. And that's just for the multifamily. There's numerous commercial and business uses, which are all non-residential, and that's all just within 300 feet, not to mention 350 feet. So if this was in the middle of a residential neighborhood, out where I grew up off of Garrison Road, for example, this wouldn't even be a discussion. This is a unique property because of its particular location of the structure, and it's because of its particular location in town. That being said, those same arguments would go for why potentially the neighborhood should probably be RC. If you remember my initial discussion for why I thought even the center village could be located here, is this particular neighborhood is basically sandwiched between 495, the CEIOD, and the center village. So it's actually quite strange that it's RB single family zoning, because almost none of the properties on this street are compliant. That being said, I think there's a lot of feedback I already got tonight. So at this point, I'd probably like to, either continue and make some big changes, or if that's, if there's really no interest from the board at all or at entertaining this, unless you get another opinion from council, I could certainly withdraw and maybe just pursue the zoning change, because I do firmly believe that for, the Doyles and the Greenwoods and others on the street, I would be very supportive of seeing RC here.
All right, do you want me just to do a straw poll so you're
Yeah, if you could, to see if there's even any interest in me making some changes and screening and looking at other options, or whether it's just not even worth it. If you could do a straw poll, that would help me a lot.
All right, Mike Walsh,
Can you clarify what we're voting on, Henry?
just, are you for this or against it?
Presently, the way it is right now? Against? Again, no.
Mike Raisback,
I guess I'd have to say I'm against, because I really think the zoning change is the appropriate thing to do here, and I think the whole area could benefit from it.
Glenn,
I'd go for it.
Don,
Path to success would be much cleaner if you went with a zoning change.
Nancy,
I would have no problems with it if the zoning changed, but without changing the zoning, I am adamantly opposed to making this a multifamily.
Hank,
I'm against that due to the zoning, like everybody else stated.
I guess you got your answer, Matt.
Okay. That being said, I mean, is the board interested? I don't want to waste any more time. I did have the citizen petition. Is the board interested in at least seeing the RC, a plan for an RC in the future, and at least entertaining a discussion about that? There seems to be some interest from at least.
We could always detain this discussion to talk about it, yes.
Okay, well,
anyways, usually the zoning changes come through us anyways.
All right, well, I'm happy to, withdraw at this time and, pursue that avenue first.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right,
Mr. Chairman, we just need a vote from the board to accept the applicant's withdrawal.
do all in favor of the applicant's withdrawal?
Aye.
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 Aye. You opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, good night, some of you. All right, I'm gonna skip the town meeting warrants because it's 9 o'clock now. We're already getting late. We got 248 Princeton Street. Colleen, do you have any letters on this?
I think I do.
You read them?
I was just grabbing them. I forgot we didn't read this at the last meeting. No, we never got to this part.
Never got to this part last meeting. That's why I'm bringing them up now.
And I'm going to hold off on the water district because I think I should pull it up on the screen. First one is from engineering, 248 Princeton Street, 10 townhouses. This office has reviewed the site plans by Land Engineering and Environmental Services, Inc., consisting of 8 sheets dated December 21st, 2020, and a stormwater management and erosion control report dated December 21, 2020. As a result of this review, the office has the following comments. The department shall be notified when work on site is to commence in order to arrange for inspections. Any revision to the drainage system shall be submitted and approved by this office. The stormwater operation and maintenance plan shall be followed as described in the report. Copies of inspections, any inspections, or other reports done in accordance with the plan shall be forwarded to the engineering office. A site as-built shall be provided upon completion of the work on site. As-built to include a letter from the engineer stating that all stormwater devices have been built to satisfy mass stormwater standards. Provide all supporting documents and calculations. The as-built shall be from a ground survey and submitted in AutoCAD and paper form. Confirmatory testing shall be performed in the area of infiltration per stormwater management guidelines. Testing shall be witnessed by the Chelmsford DPW Engineering Division. All unsuitable material, if any, discovered in the excavation for the infiltration system shall be removed and disposed of in accordance with the state and local regulations. The sewer moratorium imposed by the Chelmsford Department of Public Works that became effective on September 15th, 2020 does not apply to this project because a determination of applicability was applied for on August 21st, 2020, and issued a certificate of decision on August 26, 2020, prior to the effective date of the moratorium. Since the moratorium is not applicable, they are allowed to tie into the town sewer system. The proposed sewer work will require permitting and applicable fees from the DPW Sewer Division for connection to the municipal sewer system. A road opening permit is required from the Chelmsford DPW Highway Division for work within the Walter G. Weed Street and Harvard Street right-of-ways. State highway permits will be needed for work within the Princeton Street state layout. Trench permits shall be filed as necessary per 520 CMR 14, Chapter 82A. The design engineer has received a design and drafting review comments from this office. If you have any questions, call her at the office. Sincerely, Christina Papadopoulos, Town Engineer. Sue Rosa, Board of Health. Property must have enclosed dumpster on site per general provision, Chapter 201, Board of Health, Article 5. Commercial refuse dumpster collection, licensing, and operation regulation. That's that. Police Department. They do not have any issues with this project moving forward. And then I have a letter from David Hedison. Redevelopment of the Glenview Restaurant. Please accept this letter as my formal response to the proposed redevelopment of the Glenview Restaurant. As always, the first preference would be is to allow for a greater density and add 2 more units that would be affordable. As currently proposed, the current pro forma indicates a limited ability to make a contribution in lieu of affordability. The contribution in the range of $40,000 appears to be the maximum amount based upon the requests for the improvements in the water line. This review is based upon the information provided to myself and to the bank for financing. In addition, a number of follow-up requests were answered in a timely fashion, which assisted in reaching my conclusion. David J. Hedison, Executive Director. And the rest are abutters letters. Oh, no, wait a second. North Water. I think I have his up.
Colleen, there's one from fire safety as well.
Oh, yeah, that one's not printed. Thank you for reminding me. What are you guys seeing? I can't tell.
Not much.
The task.
There you go.
All right. So I think Bruce is here. Do you want to, I couldn't, there's no way I could read this.
Well, maybe he can read it.
That's what I was hoping. It's just too small.
Yeah, I'm here, Colleen.
Thank you, Bruce.
I mean, I don't have to read the whole thing. I mean, I can just kind of touch base with what Doug and I have discussed, the engineer for Trahan and Page. The original plan showed the water main going from Princess Street up Weed Street, terminating at the property line of the Merrill property. Doug and I talked, and I said, you know, we do not allow dead-ended water mains, especially where they can be looped. So, you know, I recommended we can downsize the line from 8-inch to 6-inch, saving some money. And the water line would tie from Princess Street and get a second feed into Middlesex Street. He wasn't, you know, for this, so he showed a loop going around the buildings, which is very unacceptable because all it is a dead end loop. It has no purpose. So that's where the plan is at now. The fire department, I talked to them. They're all for, you know, my recommendation. The water district is for my recommendation. And we did a water distribution master plan. And the master plan prohibits dead-ended water mains where they can be looped. So going forward with this plan, we're going to stick to our, you know, plan of the feed for redundancy from Middlesex Street to the property and also from Princeton Street to the property. I'm sure that that answers your questions.
So you want them to go to Middlesex Street twice, basically, right?
Nope, I want them to go from Middlesex Street all the way down to Princeton Street, tie in the 6-unit building in straight as it's shown on this plan here that I kind of docked it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're gonna run a 2-inch water main in front of the 2 duplexes, tie in those units in straight. Doug showed a additional plan, which I rejected, showing a loop going around the buildings on private property, which is unacceptable.
Yeah. All right.
And like I did tell the engineer, the water district has in the past worked with contractors, you know, for instance, Groton Road. We're doing some waivers on some of the fees. With 314 Dunstable Road, they're gonna loop the water main through to Stone Hill. So, I mean, we you know, we showed past history, told them that. We had them loop up to John Street. So, you know, this is nothing new that we're making them loop the water main from 2 different directions to get redundancy to feed this project.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may just briefly, and because I don't know if Mr. Harper has had the benefit of the revised plans, but we have revised our plans to include this loop, including the loop all the way down to Middlesex Street. And that's what was noted in Mr. Hedison's letter regarding the payment in lieu of. That's the additional fees. So we are now proposing this loop as Mr. Harper is requesting.
Okay, I haven't seen that. I did mention that to Doug, and I didn't quite hear Hedison's letter. I know I did mention to Doug from the engineering firm that, you know, possibly this could be the part of the in-kind service.
Okay.
And I think Mr. Lees will go through it a little bit more specifically, but I know we're going to do some of the loops. So once we do the overview, when the letters are read, we'll go through that in a little bit more detail.
All right.
And just one other point, if I could, to the chairman. You know, this feed is also, we're looking at is, we did some flow tests this afternoon, this morning up at the former training school, the University of Lowell. So, you know, looping these water mains, getting additional feeds into that area is going to help out also that that proposed subdivision. I'm not sure exactly what's going to go up there, but there is going to be a lot of activity up there at the old West Campus. So we're trying to get as many feeds in that area as possible. And that, you know, this will actually help out somewhat in a little bit.
All right. Colleen, was there some others from butters that we need to read in?
1, 2. I have 1. Did you guys get them when they were sent to you? Because I'd appreciate some help reading these if you don't mind.
Be Mike Walsh's job. Let's see, Mike, are you still there?
I am, but give me a minute.
Should be one from Brian Harper. Actually, while you're looking, I can read Brian's.
Colleen, we also have the fire prevention letter.
Oh, I have that up. Thank you. Okay, we'll read fire prevention first.
Go for it, Colleen.
Yep. Dear members of the board, the Fire Prevention Office has reviewed the proposed residential development at 248 Princeton Street and finds the following. Water supply appears adequate. Required pressure and flow shall be confirmed by a current water flow test performed proximate to the site with all calculations to be approved by this office. Hydrant locations appear to be adequate. One hydrant will be required to be 60 feet of any fire department connection. An additional hydrant shall be available within 500 feet of all buildings for manual firefighting operations. Access for fire department apparatus is adequate. The developer has proposed to use Walter G. Weed Street as fire department access for the 6-unit building, which is accomplished with the stairs to the roadway to traverse the grade change. Snow storage shall not impede fire apparatus access. An automatic sprinkler system that conforms to NFPA 13R shall be required in the 6-unit building. The sprinkler system shall be monitored by a fire alarm system that reports to a central station. All notifications and detection devices in buildings on the property shall comply with NFPA 72, the Massachusetts State Building Code, and applicable ADA requirements. The developer shall make application to the Town of Chelmsford E911 Committee for addresses through its chairperson, Town Clerk Tricia Duras. This office would approve this plan with these conditions, and I ask the board to make this letter part of their approval process. Respectfully, Captain Katufis.
Mike.
Mike, can you?
I'm still searching for these emails.
Oh,
I have.
If you put it on the screen, I'll read it if you put it on the screen.
I have these printed. Hold on. I'll read this one too. This is from Brian Harper. My name is Brian Harper, and I own the house at 9 Harvard Street, directly behind the area of the new proposed condos. I have a few concerns that I would like to address regarding this property. My first concern is I do not believe these condos fit the area with what is already there. The direct area is all single-family homes with a few two-families that look more like single families. With that being said, I am also concerned with the fence that they have proposed to put in place. They seem to be removing the existing fence and moving the new fence back approximately 5 feet up against my property. My problem is that my property is roughly 6 feet above the Glenview property. If they remove this earth and put a fence, there will be no guarantee that my land doesn't cave in over time. A plastic fence is not a retaining wall and will not hold back my property from eroding, not to mention that that is where they plan on putting snow removal, which they could easily cause for the fence to cave in. I would recommend that they install retaining wall with non-deciduous trees, buffer, and have a height and width to give me my privacy. They are also proposing to remove existing trees behind my yard, which acts as a privacy border. The new proposal has them putting in minimal trees, and the heights will not give me any privacy, and the new owners will be looking down directly onto my property. See my recommendation above. Another item I am concerned with is the lighting into the parking lot. I am worried that this light will brighten everything up and not give us privacy. I do not want a light on constantly in my backyard. Please take all these comments into consideration when voting on whether this project will move forward. I do believe this property needs something done to it because it has become an eyesore, as well as a dumping ground for people's unwanted goods. However, I do not think this is the right project, and if it is, then I believe there's a lot of kinks that need to be figured out. Thank you, Brian Harper.
Colleen?
I have one from Bruce Clark, but I think Bruce is here. Did I get away, Bruce, without reading the letter?
Yes, I am here.
If Bruce is here, can I let him wait? Let's just get the letter out of the way.
Hear me?
And read his own letter.
Okay,
Anything else?
that's it.
All right. Well, you got the floor, Bruce.
Bruce.
I think Bruce is frozen. All right, well, we'll move along for a couple minutes until things get straightened out. Glenn, got any comments?
Not at this time.
Mike Walsh?
No, I just think we should address the neighbors' concerns. I don't really have many issues regarding the project. I would like to thank the engineer for sending out the full set of drawings to us individually at our homes. That was very helpful. And that's all I have right now. But I do think we should address the neighbors' concerns regarding lighting, privacy. If we can address those, that'd be great.
I understand. Mike Raceback.
Yeah, I agree with Mike Walsh. I think we need to deal with the neighbor concerns. It sounds to me as if that's eminently doable. The basic project, I think, is quite reasonable.
Nancy Arroway.
No concerns.
Don Van Dyne.
I think the project is an improvement in the area, but I have no questions or concerns at this time.
Hank,
I have no concerns.
all right. Bruce, is your,
I'm talking again. Looks
you're
like
talking again. We can hear you now.
Okay, looks like my computer shut down again here. It's been a long night on the computer here. I take it my letter was not read?
No,
Oh, I was
Okay.
hoping you could do it.
you can do it.
Okay, then. So I did send a letter, back in January to the board, and I'll read it here. I have reviewed the Chelmsford zoning bylaws, the CEIOD application, and the decision of applicability for the CEIOD. I do not believe the board's decision of applicability of the property for the proposed CEIOD overlay district was proper or complies with all the requirements. Section 195, 119B1 requires the planning board determine that the type, size, and location meets that criteria of section 195, 110C. I don't believe this project does not meet the appropriate use or contribute to the livelihood or economic viability of the surrounding neighborhood. Section 195, 119B3, evaluation. The planning board failed to evaluate the project for its appropriateness for the proposed location and determines its effect and impacts on the area. Furthermore, the proposed project does not meet 195, 109, purpose and intent. C, does not meet the town.
Bruce, I forgot when you stopped putting your stuff in, did you give us your address and location?
Oh, I am, well, right now I'm in Florida, but my home address is number 30 Chelmsford Court.
Sorry about that. I just didn't get that on the record. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
yep, 30 Chelmsford Court, North Chelmsford, yep.
All right, sorry. All right, go ahead.
And so furthermore, it does not meet the intent, purpose and intent, section C, does not meet the town standards for design and construction for the neighborhood character. F, it's not compatible in context with the surrounding neighborhood. This proposal is not allowed by right and it requires many special permits, not just the floor area ratio that the applicant filed for. The minimum lot size, minimum front setback, maximum lot coverage, number of units all require special permits, in my opinion. The surrounding neighborhood consists of single and two-family homes on 1/4 and half-acre lots and not condominiums, and does not keep the residential nature and compatibility of the area. The board stated in their decision that it appears to comply with the applicable CEIOD requirements and that they had concerns for the overall mass and density of the project, yet they still went ahead and determined it was applicable for the CEIOD overlay district at their first meeting. The board also stated at the meeting that they have expressed concern over the high density requirements allowed in the overlay districts and have begun a review for revising these requirements. The proposed condominium project would constitute spot zoning, which is illegal in Massachusetts. Spot zoning is described as the singling out of a small parcel of land for a use classification totally different from that of surrounding area for the benefit of one or of the owners of such property to the detriment of the other owners. And in some case laws in Massachusetts in regards to the spot zoning, they look at the size of the parcel, with parcels less than 2 acres usually considered spot zoning. What is the surrounding neighborhood zoned? There's a large residential medium density zone in this area. Is the proposed change for the economic benefit of the owner? Yes. Will the proposed change require variance and special permits? Yes. Is the proposed change in conformance with the purpose of zoning? No. The previous hearing noted that there is a sewer moratorium on projects like this, and town meeting approved the moratorium. Does this sewer moratorium still apply for this project? Now, I understand the engineer just indicated that it was in before, so I would urge you to consider the neighborhood concerns as you did with the Lovett Lane neighborhood with the Route 40 rezoning proposal. Sincerely, Bruce Clark. Thank you.
All right. Colleen, is there anybody else from the audience that wants to weigh in on this one?
I'm sorry, I have Melissa's presentation.
Is there anybody else from the audience that wants to weigh in on this? And then we get Melissa to reply to them.
Doesn't seem to be.
All right, Melissa, visit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. What I'd like to do, I know it's late and I won't belabor anything, but I know that, Colleen, if you go to the next plan sheet, we did go through and make some of the changes that was highlighted in the fire department's comment letter. And I misspoke. To Mr. Harper's point, I did not show the water line on the plan yet, but we did receive his comments and have now included it as part of our development. So there's no plan set for connection yet, but we're going to agree to that condition. But as you can see on this plan set, as per the fire department requirements, we've added the sidewalk area and the entranceways up to Walter Reedy Street. As to the other technical issues, if I could just allow Doug Lees to speak briefly on those, and then I can answer the other questions that were just raised.
Hi, Doug Lees from Land Engineering and Environmental Services. I'll give you a real quick overview of the changes to the plan since the last meeting. We've increased the sidewalk width along Princeton Street to 5 feet. We've increased the curbing. We had proposed 5-inch granite curbing, and we've increased it to 6 inches per engineering's request. We've included a benchmark. We've updated the sewer layout now so that each unit has individual sewer services, and those are actually laid out with anticipation of the water service going up Walter Reed Street, so the sewer will work when the water is changed to address Mr. Harper's comments. We added a little bump out in the back top right-hand corner of the parking lot just for the unit, the last parking spot in unit number 1, to back out and have some place to turn around, and to address the concerns that were raised at the previous meeting about the back, Mr. Brian Harper's back lot line where the fence is. I went out there and looked. Right now, it's kind of a steep slope in the back. It's kind of a 2-to-1 slope with some trees on it that are varying in degrees of health. So what we're proposing to do is to grade that slope out and make it a nice stable 3-to-1 slope so that it can be loamed and seeded to be stabilized. And then we're going to put the fence. We are proposing to put the fence up on the top of the hill right behind his fence, so it's up higher. His lot is between 3 and 4 feet higher than the parking lot proposed to be. Well, then the parking lot is existing now. It's pretty much the grade is proposed to be at. So his lot's 3 or 4 feet higher. So it makes sense to keep the fence up at the lot line. So the fence will be higher. It's a 6-foot fence by zoning. We want the bottom to be as high as possible, so the top will be as high as possible. That was the reason for moving the fence back to the lot line. And to do that and to grade out the slope, those trees will have to be taken out. We're proposing some trees planted in that area to reestablish it. And I just wanted to point out that the light poles in the parking lot, along the back of the parking lot, are 8-foot colonial type lighting, like you see at the end of the driveway. There's a detail of them on the plans, but they're not tall parking lot lights. They're just 8-foot colonial lights that shine out and shine down. They don't shine up. So the top of those lights would be at an elevation of 112, while the existing grade for the back lot is around 108. With a 6-foot fence, the top of the fence would be 114. Those lights will actually be lower than the top of the fence along the back lot line. So that should help prevent any spillover from the lights. Mr. Harper's house is up higher than this site. His lot is 110, and again, the parking lot in the back is 104. So there's a
Just
great change there.
one quick question. So lights are not shielded.
They're domed on the top, so the light can't go up. It can only go directed out and down.
Out and down, because I mean, we do have a lighting bylaw in town that your light has to stay on your property.
Right.
And they are night sky friendly, leading down and the proper candle width, height and temperature. And Mr. Chair, we could accept that as a condition and could also supplement the package prior to the next meeting so that the board can be sure that there's no spillover.
Okay. And they can be shielded on the back. I didn't understand what you meant, to prevent the light from going towards the abutting lots and just shine out to the parking lot. Yes.
Yes. It's part of our bylaw already.
Yeah, it's typical, and yeah.
All right.
So, Mr. Chair, just to a couple other points, to Mr. Harper's point, of course, we can work with him on landscaping. He is a higher point, and oftentimes when there's an abutter that's at a higher point, sometimes it makes sense to do the buffering on their side of the property line if they're amenable, because it actually will give them better screening. So we'll reach out to them to see if there's a better fence type or plantings that they'd like on their side. That's an easy fix to his issues as to screening. And just, if you want me to briefly just answer some of the other just quick concerns that were raised. We are offering a lot of mitigation on the site. This is a redevelopment site, obviously. It's underutilized property in the town of Chelmsford. We're going to redesign it to actually fit into the area, which is very residential. As you pointed out, the West Campus property is right across the street, and that will also be proposed as a high-density residential development. As part of our improvements and even some of these offsite mitigations in front of the property, we're going to improve that sidewalk to the extent that we've been asked to along Princeton Avenue. We also added 2 crosswalks, which were requested. The biggest one, as we've discussed tonight, is agreeing to that water loop, which is an extensive cost down Walter Reedy, and doing the other extension so that we can improve the water line, not only for this project, but for the town of Chelmsford. And as the water department pointed out, that will also help with future developments that we're doing this improvement. And I don't think that I noted this at the first hearing, because I think that I keep getting the floor at 9:45 p.m. But the market rate units for this as well we're trying to stay in a price range about $379,000 as an initial price range. And I think the board would probably agree that for the town of Chelmsford, for any new construction, that's untouchable. So when we're talking about what the market conditions are, what our sales are, what our prices are per square foot, we're trying to keep it in that starting point. So that's where our market rate units are at. As for applicability, the abutter is correct that there were lots of discussions at the applicability, but at that point we were at 12 units. We came in for an interim discussion with the board in October to discuss perhaps decreasing density before we went to full design. And with the abutter comments and with the board comments, that's why we went to 10 with the payment in lieu of, instead of going to design out the 12 units that had 6 to the front and 6 to the side, both on Princeton and Walter Reedy. And just quickly, I'll talk like the micro machine man, I promise. The waivers that we're requesting from the board, I had highlighted 2. One is the residential use itself requires a special permit under the COA special permit. The other one is the floor area ratio. And just so you can know how minimal it is, in order to get, we are at 0.58 and the special permit relief starts at 0.54. So we're asking for a 0.04 basically relief from the planning board. In error, Mr. Chair, you did ask me at the last meeting if that was it, and I said yes, but I was wrong. We will need a front yard setback. We are a corner lot, and even though we're pre-existing non-conforming, we've discussed this on a couple other projects, that in order to make sure that the project is cleaned up, especially with the redevelopment, to clean up some of those pre-existing non-conformities, we will ask for relief for that as well. Right now, we're approximately, I think we're 7 feet from Walter Reedy Street. I think some of our infrastructure may actually be in Walter Reedy Street right now, but we won't talk about that. And I think we're requesting a special permit for 10.3 feet. And that's certainly allowed within your COA special permit requirements. So it's the 3 special permits: residential use, floor area ratio, and front yard setback. We're meeting all the setbacks to the neighbors. All of the setback relief we're asking from is from the street side. And I have to say it's a marked improvement over what's there today. I will not belabor anything else. I'll see if the board has any questions regarding anything that's been raised tonight.
Do you have a landscape plan for this showing any plantings along the streets at all? I know I saw the wall there before.
I think if you go down, Colleen, to like slide 13, I think it was there. Mr. Lees had gone through it briefly. There it is. I was one off. Yes. Okay, so this was the landscape plan that was presented, and Doug, if you want to run through it quickly.
Yeah, sure. The landscape plan, there's some shrubs, plantings in the front of the units, and at the at driveway entrance. And then there's some evergreens along the back fence, along the side. Some ivory silk and so red maple, so that's deciduous, a lilac, white firs at the corner right here. And there's a little park area, a little pocket park down in the grass area to the right.
And Colleen, if you go back one more slide, I'm sorry, to the colored rendering, you can see also what we're proposing, and this will be a little different now because the walkways there on Walter Weedy will come out to where that, where that white car is going, and there'll be two walkways leading down. But we're also proposing to rip out all of the pavement there that's there today and green up this entire area. And then we will build a fence almost the entirety of the property, except in the front. You see that we're going to stop that fence and put it into a front wall, which will lead into the walkways, which will lead to a much nicer residential design coming in and out of the property. Some modest signage in the front of the property that will be properly landscaped, and then some landscaping, as Mr. Lees has pointed out, in front of each of the units, which will be typical. And then the only difference you might see here, Mr. Chair, from our final plans is that we'll go speak to Mr. Harper about the trees and the fence in that corner.
All right, I'll run around the board one more time. Glenn, got any questions?
No, I think I'm happy with the way it looks. I think I'm fine with it.
Nancy,
No issues, no questions.
Mike Walsh,
No, if you can just, Melissa, as you mentioned, Mr. Hopper, the neighbor, and the other neighbors, just appease them. I have no issues with this project, if that can be taken care of.
Yeah, I think Mr. Walsh, a lot of the other abutters' comments are technical in nature. As to the COID applicability and the actual COID principles themselves. A lot of the sections that he had discussed that we are not meeting, we actually are either by right from the underlying zoning or COID by right. I think that we could probably address those in the facts and findings when we go to draft those, so that we can make sure that those issues are all ironed out. But I'll go back through his comment letter and just make sure that there's nothing else outstanding to address. But just, I forgot to mention one other point to Sue Rose's comments. I'm not sure if that was meant for this development, because this is not a commercial development. This is a home ownership development. So I will reach out to the Board of Health too, to find out where that comment came from, because we're proposing private curbside pickup, as typical with any private residential development. So I'll address that as well.
So Melissa, just one quick question to follow up on that regarding the butter. How many trees are you taking down up on that north side?
When we went back to do the regrading, I know that there was some trees in that area between Mr. Harper and I think Colleen. Oh yeah, go back to that one, the landscaping plan, because you can see fuzzed out a little bit.
Oh yeah.
That there's some tree line there. And to the extent that we can keep trees, we always like to keep trees. But if we have to run that tree line, if we have to run that fence line back to fix the grade, to address his grading concern, then we obviously have to take the trees down. But we'll address that directly with him to see what exactly we can work out in that area. I think really the answer will be to maybe put a fence up to match his fence line on maybe his side of the property. Because that's obviously the highest point, and then maybe do some plantings on either his side of the tree line or our side of the tree line to address his concern. That way he can have best of both worlds for buffering.
Great, thank you.
Hank,
Still no issue.
Dawn.
No questions or concerns.
All right, now the only other thing that we gotta take and talk about is a payment in lieu of.
Yes, and I can speak to that quickly. I did meet initially with Mr. Hedison at the beginning of the project, but I asked him to hold off making a determination until we figured out what other mitigation would come in. And then we had the water comments come in, and obviously agreeing to that water comment substantially reduces the amount that we can pay for a project of this size.
Well, I mean, that would be one of the one of the factors we would be taking into consideration. Do you have any idea what that will cost?
I think, and I know that my client's on the line, but with rising construction costs, I'm afraid to guess, but I think right now on the pro forma, we were guessing somewhere between $65,000 and $85,000. So we took the number in between and said 75,000. That's not including the connection fees, as Mr. Harper points out. They may negotiate that with us, and we're not even carrying that number right now on our pro forma, but we estimate that's the construction cost for all the water lines.
And you said you're doing a small pocket park. Is that for public or is that just for your?
The pocket park will be accessible. It's an open green area. Obviously, it's not going to be public space with a public easement and all that, but it would be accessible. But certainly the sidewalk improvements, Mr. Chair, all the way along Princeton will be done by the applicant, but those are sidewalks that are owned and maintained by the town of Chelmsford. So that's a public benefit.
That's what I'm trying to get out of you, just the public benefit so that
Sure.
Hedison can make a number, but we're the ones that determine what it is.
Sure. So really overall, the public benefits are the overall redevelopment of the site and just taking the site down in itself with the grease traps and some other issues that we have out there is going to be significant. Taking out all the pavement, putting in the green space, upgrading the sidewalks. I won't go through the connection fees blow by blow as we have with other projects, but obviously we're going to agree to all sewer connection fees as is pointed out in Ms. Papadopoulos's letter. We're also going to agree to do 2 crosswalks so that we can get to both sides of the property as was suggested in Ms. Papadopoulos's letter. And we're also going to try to market this for a lower price, as I had indicated, to try to keep these at a more of a market rate. I think that it was actually Nancy Airway that had mentioned during that October meeting that although the affordable units are going away, the people that work here and live here in the town of Chelmsford are finding it harder and harder to find housing that they can afford, even if it's not affordable per se. So I think this will go to address a lot of those concerns. And then the water connection is really the biggest one. This isn't a complicated pro forma. We have to try to keep this number at a certain number in order to get it financed by an entity. And when you put all those numbers in, we're right on the line of making sure that we're above water so that we can get this financed to a lender.
And Mr. Hedison suggested 40,000.
Correct.
All right, and you people have no problem with 40,000?
No, when we put that into the numbers, we're okay.
All right. Well, I think we still got another meeting to go here.
Yeah, and the only thing that I would ask, Mr. Chair, is given the timing for elections here, I think we only have one more meeting before the election. So perhaps, I know I offered a couple things for the board, but if we could task Evan with perhaps drafting the findings and some of the things we discussed this evening so that we could try to wind this up at the next meeting, I would appreciate it, just because I do think that's your last meeting before elections. And then I would lose quorum.
How do you feel about that, Evan?
That's fine with me. It may require the board to spend some extra time at the next meeting, right, to go through those, but I'll get it out before the meeting. And I think your next meeting's agenda should be a bit lighter.
All right, well, let me take and see how everybody feels about the payment in lieu of, at least if we can try to get that monkey off our back to start with. Mike Raisback, I'm gonna start with you.
I find it acceptable. I'm obviously depending very much on Hedison's advice.
Mike Walsh.
I agree. I'm fine with it as well.
Nancy.
Given the price point of the units and David's endorsement, I'm okay with it.
And Cool.
I'm okay with it.
Glenn Cole.
I'm good with it.
Don.
I'm good.
And I'm good. So that's one thing out of the way. All right, so the items that we got left open, you were gonna work with a neighbor on the fence
Yes, and then I'll get a lighting plan.
and a lighting plan.
Yes.
Does anybody have any problems with the 10 units?
Nope.
No problem here.
Nope.
Mike Walsh,
No.
Nancy,
Nope.
Dawn?
No,
All right, I think we're all good with the 10 units. Nancy, are you all set with the landscaping plan? Is there anything else that you would like to see? Because we just gotta nail this down between the next meeting. I don't know how well you've looked at it yet, and that's usually your area.
I'm gonna tell you that from what I've seen, I don't have a problem with it. It's very minimalistic. But given the design of this property and the nature of it, I'm not sure that they can do much more with it. So I'm okay.
All right. So the waivers that we were looking for. I'm sorry, I lost it. I had them written down here. I moved the piece of paper on me.
That's okay. The first one is the waiver for residential use under COID.
And does anybody have a problem with that?
Nope.
No.
no,
No problem.
I think you're all set on that one. What was the other one?
The second is for a COID special permit for floor area ratio of 0.58, where the COID allows for up to 0.67.
That's fine.
Anybody have any issues with that?
No.
I'm fine with it.
no,
Tong, you all set?
I am.
All right.
And the last one, Mr. Chair, is the front yard setback, which we actually have two, one along Walter Reedy and one along the frontage on Princeton Boulevard for 10.3 feet.
Anybody have any issues with that?
Fine with that.
Yeah, forever hold your peace.
No.
No issue.
No problem.
That's it, Mr. Chair.
All right, Evan, you have enough to get started?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good night, everyone. That gets that out of the way. All right, now, the only thing we had, and it really doesn't have to happen right now, is we were gonna.
Mr. Chair, I think we need a
Yeah,
formal continuance.
Yeah, you need to either continue or close.
Yeah.
I'd ask you to continue and just leave us open, just so we can negotiate a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'll move that.
Motion to continue.
Will there be any public comment tonight?
There'll be
Well, we
public
had
comment the next time. There was public comment tonight already, but we're done with public comment for tonight.
Okay, I was just wondering if they may clarify on the public notice. It said creating a new lot.
We will they'll deal with that in the next.
Oh, okay, thanks.
All right. Was there somebody make a motion?
Move to continue?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you all.
Can you just
Thank you
make one
very much.
statement? Can I get, make a statement? Can I get a new set of plans from you guys?
Absolutely. We'll get those to you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing how it's almost 10 o'clock at night. A couple of things that we've been thinking about with the, I know for reviewing and streamlining ourselves. I know Mike Raisbeck, you had made the comment about going around and looking at some of the older developments.
Yeah, particularly that gets nice.
It's ones that come out right and ones that haven't come out right.
Yeah, exactly.
I did get a comment from somebody about it, and I went over and looked at the project on 110. And I do drive by it. Maybe you can go by it when you're going up to the gas station or something. The landscaping on 110 for the one side that, the front door is basically off to the side.
Right.
I remember we worked on it quite a bit. Take a look at it. The bushes are really undersized. Sidewalk
Yeah.
isn't being shoveled this winter.
All right,
some things
we
about
have
that
something to
we
work
need
on,
to
yeah.
look at. I know you mentioned it. That was one that I saw. And I'm just not going to belate this a lot because it's 10 o'clock at night. And getting past our bedtime. Mike,
Can I just make just one comment for the board?
Yeah.
Can we keep to the documents being submitted by Friday afternoon? Because particularly this week, we've had a revised agendas. We've had letters that have come in till 5 o'clock today. And I don't think the board has enough time to review it. And as the secretary, and I apologize to Colleen, thank you for reading them for me. I couldn't locate a lot of those emails that came in today and yesterday. So but I would have had them, I had them all ready for Friday. So it's either one way or the other. We just got to decide as a board going forward, does it stop anything that has to be in by 3 o'clock Friday, or otherwise we don't address it, even if it's a letter from the town manager.
all right, you know what I think we should, how we could probably handle this. If a letter comes in late, we'll acknowledge it, but we ain't gonna read it. Say so-and-so sent a letter for, against, and just keep moving on. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that. If you want to have, if you want to have.
I think I'd like to stick with the way Mike put it, just to, if they're not in by 3 o'clock on Friday, then they don't get acknowledged.
They don't get acknowledged?
Maybe that'll get them in by 3 o'clock on Friday. And I keep giving breaks to everybody, right? And it's never gonna get fixed.
I would suggest.
I know this is, I will get to you in a second, Christine, but we've had a lot of this recently. It's just, you gotta realize we're a board that works full-time at other jobs and the weekends when we go over this.
Can I just make a suggestion?
Yeah.
That if we do have letters that are not being read, that the board does not close any public hearing until the following meeting where we can address those letters.
Yeah, that works
that's pretty
all right,
fair.
except for like this next meeting that's coming up that we're on a deadline that we're having an election.
Well, that's an exception, and we would have to make that exception as a group, approve that, but this is becoming the second nature.
The problem is, Mike, if you keep it open just to address those letters, then somebody's going to send in more letters right before the next meeting, and it just continues it out and continues it out.
Okay.
And we should really be pushing to get these things through a lot faster and not dawdle with them.
Good point.
All right, Christina.
Oh, so I agree with all of your statements to some degree. So I would love to get my letters in by 3 o'clock on Friday. Sometimes it is impossible. I'm chasing down engineers, I'm chasing down developers, and
not your problem. What we have done,
I know
what we've done in the past. If they don't get your letters to you by a certain date, too bad. There's another meeting coming in 2 weeks. They're not going to like it. They're not going to like it, but they'll catch on pretty quick.
But that'll make them start putting their letters together.
I like it as long as I get my material that I can review, especially if it's a technical review.
No,
I need a lot of time to do it. I can't get stuff like this past, I got technical information on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to present a letter to you. Theoretically, you're thinking by 3 o'clock on Friday. There's no way.
Maybe we should reorganize the whole thing so that you tell your people you need your stuff by 8 o'clock on Wednesday morning, so you can get it out by 3 o'clock on Friday.
Or Tuesday or Monday.
Or whatever. You pick a day, how long it takes you to review something and go with that. That's right. Everything just got to move back a little bit. We understand you have to do the work, and we're just asking that we can get the stuff so we can do the work.
Yeah, and if Christina comes to a meeting saying I didn't have adequately time to review it, then we don't approve it.
Right.
At that time, or not approve it at that time. We don't make a decision until we get the professional input of the town.
Yeah.
I mean, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we'll support you, but we have to. They have to. They'll learn really quick. Trust me. I work in plenty of other towns with projects and stuff. No, it doesn't happen that quick. So Anything else that we want to take and put on this subject for discussion of how to streamline? Or Nancy, could you put, I'm gonna task you with a little project. Try to
What's
take-
that?
Try to put together a list of what you think different people should take and work on for making, if we have, especially a large project, somebody looks at landscape and somebody looks at, public benefits. Somebody looks at, kind of give somebody to take a look at a part of it, then they're not all looking at landscape, and we're not all looking at public benefits. We're not all looking, I think we could take and lighten the load on a lot of people.
Yeah.
Henry, you'll take the lighting, right?
I'll take lighting,
Yeah,
yeah.
Henry will take the lighting. So Henry, do you want me to come up with a list of topics or a list of topics and recommendations of who should have them?
Well, I think we can just make a list of topics and we can vote it in, or,
Yeah, I can do that for you.
yeah.
Good idea.
I just think that would be an easier way to try to handle it.
Yeah.
Especially if you get somebody that just did the special permits instead of, Mike Walsh did a lot of work on that last one.
Yeah. He knows special permits inside out.
Yeah, well, he could be the expert on it now.
I'm not gonna say a word.
All right, seeing how it's after 10 o'clock. I wanted to, yeah.
Can I
I'll
make a
second
motion?
Do
Do we adjourn?
I have a
Move to
second?
adjourn.
Oh, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.